What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 7 of Chapter 176 Confrontation Advertisement. The visitor was dressed in white, his clothes were a bit tattered, but he was clean and well dressed. There was no trace of black hair on his head, and the wrinkles on his face made him look a little older. When Blackbeard saw this person, his expression changed drastically. Rayleigh? Rayleigh? Is that Roger's deputy? Fanoka couldn't help but turn around and look. There was some disbelief in everyone's eyes. Pluton Rayleigh. It was a name that stuck to an era, but it disappeared after Roger's death. There has been little news coverage of his whereabouts. But Badgers did smile arrogantly and said, he is only one person, so there is no need to be afraid at all. Perhaps Q and I are enough to defeat him. After saying that, he also showed off his muscular muscles, and the strength fruit gave him full confidence. Q rode on the white horse and responded with a depressed look. Yes, I will definitely let him know that my poison is powerful. The two were eager to give it a try, but Shiryu poured cold water on them. What idiots, it wouldn't take Rayleigh more than a minute to beat you two. He and Blackbeard are about the same age, they're both old people who have survived from the previous era. When I was young, I had heard of Pluton Rayleigh even if I had never seen him. Badgers didn't believe it. Perhaps he felt a little refuted, but he wanted to challenge even more. Blackbeard didn't stop him. Badgers jumped up and swooped down on Rayleigh like an eagle. When the lily bow is deployed, the blow must be as powerful as 1,000 pounds, and even steel will be flattened. Rayleigh raised her left hand calmly, her face unwavering, as if she didn't take Badgers seriously at all. He once stopped Whitebeard's 1st Division Marco with one finger. Even though he is old now, it is still easy to defeat a person with fruit-reliant abilities like Badgers. This is also true. As soon as the two sides fought, the impact immediately cracked the surrounding ground. Badgers chuckled, feeling that Rayleigh could only passively accept his moves. Suddenly, his eyes opened up and he saw that Rayleigh's feet were intact. All his power was removed just now, he didn't even understand how it was done. He suddenly felt bad and realized that he was a little too big. When he was about to stop his hand, Rayleigh squeezed his fist with his palm. Domineering energy gathered in his wrinkled, calloused hands, and Badgers instantly felt the fear from his heart. Fruit nemesis, domineering, and it's still extremely domineering. He tried his best to break free, but his hands seemed to be welded together and he couldn't move. Rayleigh smiled jokingly and threw him out like garbage. Total defeat, not even able to fight back, advertisement. Seeing Badgers defeated like this, Shiryu cursed, how stupid. Badgers and Poison Q, the two youngest crew members, were the two people he thought were stupider. Arrogance knows no bounds. He didn't even dare to go head-to-head with Rayleigh, let alone Badgers, who was the weakest. It was purely because Blackbeard wanted to test whether Rayleigh was really going to start a fight during this trip. Badgers is not dead, this is the best proof, but... Fanoka in the distance had a calm expression, but there was a trace of sweat on his palms. He was always waiting for Badgers to be in danger and specially marked him. He was afraid that Rayleigh would kill him instantly and he wouldn't even have a chance to teleport. All the best. With just a look from Blackbeard, Shiryu, Fanoka, and Lafayette knew what their captain was going to do. Why are you here? Rayleigh asked. Blackbeard couldn't tell whether he was angry or happy, and for a moment he forgot to answer. Falling behind in terms of momentum. Hey, Teach, what do you want to do? I don't want to tell you, Blackbeard said with a bad expression. He said to Rayleigh, no, anyone who is a former One Piece crew member will have a deep fear. This fear comes from seeing how terrifying they are decades ago. A bunch of monsters, evildoer. Otherwise, it would be impossible to successfully reach Elbaf under the fierce pursuit of marine and world government. He swallowed and felt his throat moving. You shouldn't come to this island. That means you've offended two forces at the same time, which doesn't suit you. Rayleigh's most familiarity with Blackbeard is from the news. But he is old enough to seek the country, and a glimpse of Madara reveals the whole story. Ruthless, unscrupulous, and unwilling to do anything without profit. These are the impressions Blackbeard left on him. Are you talking about 4 Emperors Swain? Ha 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 ha. He laughed wildly. I'm nowhere to be found. How could he find me? This is his advantage now. There is no huge base like 4 Emperors, so traveling in a group is more suitable for current development. Errant. I think he's like a rat crossing the street, Rayleigh said without mercy. He despises people who harm their companions for a little profit. Since he had hurt Hancock, Swain would definitely send someone or even come to hunt him down personally. You've provoked the strongest old man and young man in the world, and you won't be able to survive anymore. Whitebeard and Swain are the strongest old people and newcomers. This is the default throughout the world. HMPH, Blackbeard said disdainfully, sooner or later they will all die in my hands. Those two fruits of theirs have the ability to destroy heaven and earth and turn rivers upside down. Chapter 177 The Strong Advertisement. HMPH, Blackbeard said disdainfully, sooner or later they will all die in my hands. Those two fruits of theirs have the ability to destroy heaven and earth and turn rivers upside down. Blackbeard laughed wildly, as if he had already imagined the powerful days of getting the ocean fruit and the shocking fruit. Rayleigh said with a gloomy face, it's a pity that you can't get any. Whitebeard was a friend of the former captain, and he had a very good relationship with him. They both had lofty ideals and had told their dreams. Not to mention Swain, his apprentice who was taught by his own hands, and also the boyfriend of Snake Princess from Nine Snakes Island. These two people are inextricably related to him. Blackbeard is so arrogant that it will inevitably make him a little angry. Really? Let's wait and see, Blackbeard said. The lower half of Holy Land's evil wolf is still petrified. Blackbeard changed the subject and said, then please Hancock remove my companion's status. Seeing that he was a little reluctant, Rayleigh said coldly to Kaido. He is just reaping the consequences, not to mention you or a group of uninvited guests. Blackbeard inadvertently gave Shiryu a look and the other party immediately understood. Then he became invisible and looked for Hancock. Take a preemptive strike, otherwise the petrification caused by the sweet fruit will be difficult to remove. Unless he comes in person or is in a coma. Rayleigh has such a sophisticated eye that he noticed Shiryu leaving at a glance. It's just that he was able to escape from the lock of his sight and color. Some tricks. He pulled out a western knife, and a dazzling light appeared on the blade. Then he struck with a sharp slash at will, separating Blackbeard. If you cross the red line, don't blame me for being rude. Blackbeard's pupils shrank and he was about to call Shiryu to stop, but the latter had already taken action. Old guy, your time has come to an end, Shiryu said in a hoarse voice. The blood-red sword slash was like the red moon, fierce and terrifying. Rayleigh reacted very quickly and immediately turned the blade. Ding ding ding. You like sneak attacks so much, kid? Rayleigh asked contemptuously. The two faced each other and sparks kept flying between their weapons. Rayleigh wrapped conquerors around his weapon and slashed out. Shiryu quickly put his sword in front of him to block. Boom. Shiryu failed to block the blow and flew out like a cannonball. Captain? Lafayette asked. No, he flatly refused. Lafayette was wondering if the captain would fight a fair fight. He was relieved when he heard the next sentence. It's not yet time. Rayleigh's flaws will hardly be exposed easily. If Shiryu is in danger, Fanoka will provide immediate support. Received, I'm very confident, Fanoka responded. Rayleigh is old, and his strength is not at the peak of his youth. In the Saboti Islands, he can only contain a general, but cannot defeat him immediately. Shiryu's strength is equally impressive. As the former detention center of Impel Down City, his strength is evident. Advertisement, but there is one thing. Both of them are at the level of Emperor's deputy, at least now. Rayleigh's strength is far less than before. There was a loud sizzling sound, and the slash marks of the two men split the sea surface. It's so powerful, Fanoka said with emotion. It is absolutely the right idea for Shiryu to become Blackbeard's partner. Even though Rayleigh is old, she can still eat. He holds the weapon in his left hand and uses his sword in an eccentric manner. Prosperity. Rayleigh suddenly shouted. The domineering power rose sharply, and in the blink of an eye, the fierce force on his body was like the autumn wind sweeping away fallen leaves, sweeping away thousands of people. It was so majestic that the air seemed to be torn apart, and a deafening roar erupted. Every time a step hits the ground trembles, as if the whole world is being trampled under its feet. Blackbeard's pupils shrank and said, this momentum? In a trance, he could actually see the back of Roger when he was young in Rayleigh. Fanoka, he reminded. Got it, Captain. The strong man of the past. Fanoka's eyes showed envy. He will not be forgotten as time goes by, on the contrary, he will become more and more prominent. In his mind, the reputation of a truly strong man is the most important, such as Whitebeard's reputation is the strongest man in history. Red Hair is the most domineering man in history. Swain is the most misbehaving man in history. After putting these thoughts away, I concentrated on Shiryu. He has never seen Shiryu's true strength, and it is still unknown whether he can catch Rayleigh's move. Shiryu, who was in the invisible state at this time, also showed his true body. His eyes are as solemn as a sinking tripod. In the face of absolute strength, his fruit abilities are just a foil. Sizzle. Black arcs flashed around him, his palm turned blood red, and then bloodshot slowly penetrated into the blade. The famous sword Lei Yu in his hand seemed to be able to taste the taste of blood and made a sizzling sound. Pleasure. This was the emotion that Thunderstorm conveyed to Shiryu. It's been a long time since I tried my best, Rain Festival. Tick. It started to rain lightly in the sky, and it fell to the ground in a steady patter. But it was a rain of blood. Red rain. This strange scene immediately shocked everyone present. Blackbeard couldn't help but laugh. What a reliable partner. The stronger the strength, the more excited he felt. In this way, he will be closer to his ambition. Whizzing. The two extremely fast figures made a sound of breaking through the air, each carrying incomparable power and finally fighting each other. Chapter 178. The end. Advertisement. This moment. Udrop seemed to be conscious and deliberately avoided the two of them. The shadows of the swords intertwined, and the sword energy flew across the sky. They are like the Emperor in the sword. One is a gentle swordsman in white, and the other is a young and powerful bloodthirsty swordsman. Ding ding ding. The sword blades didn't touch each other at all, but they could make a metallic collision sound and spark strange sparks. This must be a confrontation between domineering people. The battle between Rayleigh and Shiryu is delicate and unsolvable. The two of them couldn't even see any flaws, and it was difficult to find an entry point to defeat the opponent in one blow. The duel between swordsmen is like this. Either you crush with absolute strength, or you slowly advance and try to find a flaw. But this premise is based on the fact that the two people do not aim to kill each other, but fight purely for the sake of discussion. It's obvious that Shiryu doesn't have much time left. Hey, Shiryu, we can leave this place, Blackbeard urged. He happened to pick a time when the two of them were separated. Shiryu looked back at Blackbeard and said nothing. The moment Leiyu slowly retracted the scabbard, he was instantly teleported to Blackbeard by Fanoka. There is no need to fight to the death, Fanoka advised. He knew that the swordsmen were a special group and were sometimes proud of being killed by their enemies. Shiryu asked for a cigar from Lafitte, took a few puffs and said, I know, it's just a simple test. Fanoka's mouth Kakuzu twitched a few times when he heard this. You call that battle testing? Those who didn't know better thought that the two of them had signed a life and death contract and would fight until death. I guess Swain's help is coming soon. We won't be able to escape if we delay, Blackbeard said. Everyone was a little frightened when they heard the name Swain. After all, as the four emperors who are currently at the peak of their power, he is so overwhelming that Marine can hardly hold her head up. Rayleigh, I will make up for the rest later, Shiryu shouted loudly. He felt that Rayleigh didn't try his best at all. Rayleigh shook the rein off the tail of the knife and responded, I'm always with you, but if you come alone, it will be dangerous. Shiryu's expression changed, knowing that Rayleigh was mocking him for having help. Then he snorted coldly and walked away. As for the petrification on the evil wolf, he had his own way to remove it, it just took a little effort. A sea area hundreds of nautical miles away from Nine Snake Island. A handsome young man was moving forward very quickly on the seawater. The speed is jaw-dropping. Swain suddenly slowed down the flow and lightly stamped his feet a few times. 1, 2, and 3 ripples spread quickly. This was the information he used to sense the front. As the water rippled out, the feedback information gradually emerged in his mind. Ace and Marco. Swain wondered, why are they here? He immediately rode off on the wave. Hurrah, advertisement. Marco was talking to Ace when he suddenly looked up and back. His eyes were quite sharp. Is there anyone? Ace asked. There's a strange smell, Marco replied. When Ace was about to ask about the strange smell, a sea of water in front of them suddenly boiled. Swain rose out of the seawater, and his whole body was isolated from the seawater by a dark blue halo. It's you? Ace said in surprise. Marco was also very surprised and said, It's really fate that I can see you here. Swain smiled and said, Yes, I didn't have time to thank you last time. It's a pity that I won't have the chance this time. Ace chuckled. Swain Kaido. Next time I have a chance, I will visit Mr. Whitebeard. Then I will definitely stay with you until we get drunk. Thank you for your life-saving kindness last time. It's a little effort, nothing worth mentioning. What are you going to do this time? Swain suddenly asked. Marco looked a little hesitant, but Ace said without hesitation. We got news that the traitor appeared on Juice Island, and we are going to clean up the door. Teach. That's right. That's even more coincidental. My purpose this time is also to go to Nine Snakes Island, Swain said. Ace joked. Is he going to kill Teach too? Unexpectedly, Swain's face suddenly turned cold and he said, yes. The cold tone made the two of them feel as if they were falling into an ice cellar. Swain's eyes were filled with frost, and the murderous chill could not be concealed. They swallowed at the same time, only feeling the breathtaking breath when Dad Whitebeard was angry. Ace and Marco didn't know the relationship between Swain and the pirate Empress Hancock, nor did they know Blackbeard's purpose this time, which was to target the young Supreme in front of them. Anyone can get angry. Swain can show it on his face without showing it, and he has already restrained his emotions very well. At least when we met just now, I didn't feel anything was wrong with him. Let's go together, Swain invited. Ace and Marco looked at each other and saw helplessness in each other's eyes. This should not be refused, right? Then, the three of them headed towards Nine Snake Island together. Nine Snake Island at this time. Rayleigh and Hancock were talking about something. A dozen meters away from them, Raglan was still lying. He was being rescued by several women wearing sheepskin clothes with revealing figures. Hancock asked Rayleigh, why did you know I was in danger? Well, Grandma Nee told me. Hancock was silent for a moment and said, thank you so much. If you hadn't arrived in time, I might have met with misfortune. You're welcome, just order me enough wine. In fact, I came here with this purpose in mind. Rayleigh replied haha. Hancock's face darkened and he said, I see, I will treat you well. Rayleigh's laughter stopped suddenly. She didn't expect the other party to agree so simply. He nodded quickly, fearing that the other party would regret it. Chapter 179. It happened by chance. Advertisement. Marco looked at Swain in shock. He had to hold on to the mast with both hands. The water was moving too fast. The boat almost flew. From a distance, it looked like Swain was flying with a sword, and he was still pulling a small boat carrying two people. Hey Ace, can you feel it? What do you mean? Ace looked at Marco with confusion. What a scary guy. Marco didn't know whether it was admiration or fear. Swain's ability to control the ocean is really unexplainable. Just looking at this speed, you can tell that he can condense only one current among the thousands of waves to achieve the fastest speed in the opposite direction. This is truly unique. Ace somewhat belatedly understood what Marco meant, but he didn't feel the slightest fear. In his mind, no matter how powerful he is, he cannot defeat the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. Deeply ingrained ideas. But if we really want to compare, Swain is indeed invincible among the younger generation. While he was thinking about it, Swain in front suddenly said, "It seems like someone is coming." Ace and Marco immediately looked ahead, and sure enough, a ship was approaching. The hull is relatively large, and flying above the mast is a flag formed by 3 skulls. Swain looked at it carefully and found that the ship's flag looked familiar. Ace from behind suddenly shouted, "It's that B******** D teach." A surge of anger surged into his chest. The captain of the 4th squad was killed by a betrayer, and it was an old man in his own team. This apology must be paid off for him no matter what. And the way to repay this is to kill Teach. Thinking of this, he jumped out of the boat impatiently. Taking advantage of the inertial speed of the boat, he instantly transformed into an element. A ball of flame floated in the air on his lower body and roared, "Fire Fist." The flame expanded rapidly, and the sudden increase in temperature could be clearly felt in the surroundings. The flow of air seemed to be stagnant, and the expanding flame formed a huge fist. Hoo ho ho. The people on the black group didn't pay attention at all. There were 3 inconspicuous people under the huge raft pirate ship. When the fire fist waved in the wind, his eyes were full of horror. "Bloodblade!" Shiryu shouted. A ruthless and cold blood-colored sickle blade slashed at the huge fire fist from the side of the ship at lightning speed. A sizzling sound, like a blade cutting glass, making a harsh sound, Ace's fire fist was split in 2 and poured into the sea, emitting hot steam. Blackbeard saw Ace at a glance and laughed loudly. "Gia ha ha ha, Captain Ace, do you like me so much?" Shiryu put away the thunderstorm, and because of the cigarette in his mouth, he said vaguely, "Don't overestimate your capabilities." HMPH. What if you add me? Marco's wings took off at this time, and the blue divine bird's body was glowing with sparkling fire. Since they were in the blind spot of the giant ship, they could not be observed by normal sight. "Marco is here too," Blackbeard exclaimed in surprise. "But it's not surprise, it's a look of surprise. I declare this fruit of yours to be mine." Marco's eyes looked sharply at Blackbeard, who met his gaze with ease and fearlessness, full of greed and contempt. "I don't know where you get your confidence, *****. Wow." Then he screamed, raised his head and rushed into the air. The blue double feathers curled up and turned into a half-beast form. The phoenix's hooves glowed with a vigorous golden light, and its claws were as sharp and hard as a divine weapon. "Phoenix seal!" Marco shouted. Whoosh! I saw a blue arc crossing the sky, leaving a trail as stunning as a comet. Silk, 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 silk. The speed was so fast that the air screamed. Van Oka raised his sniper rifle and aimed his right eye at Marco's head through the telescope. Blackbeard held down his gun. He was a little confused when he saw his captain looking into the air. It was Shiryu who rushed out again and took charge. Rain Festival. A light rain began to fall, and the blood rain suddenly stopped at a certain moment, and then suddenly jumped and pulsed with his knife. Boom, boom, boom. Marco's Phoenix Seal is extremely powerful, and Shiryu's sword shadow is gradually shattered. Advertisement, but there was no pressure on the latter's face. Instead, he chuckled. "If you have more people, you are still overestimating your capabilities. I can deal with you all by myself." As he blocked with all his strength, Marco was locked in a rain of blood. The blue body surface instantly turned into dark red. "This," Marco said in surprise. He wanted to use his claws to tear it open, but found that it was like a sticky spiderweb, and instead it wrapped his claws. Shiranui, Ace went straight towards Blackbeard. "To capture the thief, capture the king first. How can you come up and bully our boss?" Poison Q said softly. It seemed that the next moment he had tears flowing out. Ace had never seen Poison Q before, so he quickly turned his gun and thrust the 2 fire spears into Poison Q, who was riding the Pegasus. He didn't understand his ability and was easily poisoned. "Fire Fist!" Ace yelled. Suddenly, he found that his voice was very high-pitched, and subconsciously touched his throat and found that his Adam's apple was gone. Ah! He rubbed his eyes and couldn't believe that he had grown a pair of breasts. She turned into a woman. Swain continued to watch the fight from the blind spot of the ship and did not choose to take action. Ace and Marco are 2 top-level team captains, and it is still very difficult to fight against the black team. Shiryu alone is more powerful than a general. Coupled with the black group's various unexpected and cunning abilities, it is simply impossible to guard against. If you are not careful, you will easily capsize in the gutter. Fanoka quickly adjusted the gun and shot Ace in the head. This sudden shot, the bullet was made of special seafloor stone technology, and it was also the arms that Swain was supposed to transport to uprisings around the world. If he was really hit, he might die, but Ace was prepared for it. He had already seen the future with his knowledge. He quickly elementalized at the foresight and dodged the blow. But Van Oka is not stupid either. He will not give up if he can't succeed with 1 shot, and fires several more shots. The trajectory of the bullet blocked almost all of his escape paths. In desperation, "Firefly," he said in a high-pitched voice. Dots of beautiful fluorescent sparks were circulating around him. Burst. He used the method of harming himself to forcibly excrete the toxins in the fruit from the body and burned them cleanly. Bang bang bang. Pillar of flames. He slapped down hard, and thick flames instantly appeared in a fire ring, protecting himself. The bullet turned into liquid and dripped under the high-temperature flame. Ace let out a heavy breath and looked at Blackbeard with an indifferent expression. The transformation of Marco's flawless Ace, he is now entangled with Shiryu and cannot escape at all. Ha ha ha, I said it before, you simply don't overestimate your abilities. Don't get too proud too early, Marco snorted coldly. Ching Yan. Tisk. The blue flame suddenly erupted with terrifying heat, completely evaporating the rain of blood. His green flames not only have a healing effect, but the terrifying high temperature can also kill people. It's just that the preferences of those with abilities differ. Then Marco got rid of the control and flew freely into the air. He stared solemnly at the man in front of him who was wearing a black peaked cap and had a cold and contemptuous expression. Shiryu is strong. At the very least, he is more powerful than the generals he has fought against before, and he is an expert in mastering Haki. In this round, Marco was at a disadvantage, but he soon discovered a problem. Why didn't they find Swain? Etc. What about Swain? Chapter 180 Battle. Advertisement. Shiryu saw that Marco was a little distracted, and immediately stepped forward. The power of the thunderstorm knife seemed unparalleled. How careless. Is this the strength of the captain of Whitebeard's first division? Whoosh. A huge semi-transformed blue wing was cut off, and Marco felt a little painful. The body fell from the air, but the power of the phantom beast fruit returned to its original state in the next second. Together with his pain, it disappeared, as if the wound had been blown by the spring breeze and healed immediately. I can make many mistakes, Marco grinned. Shiryu's face turned gloomy when he heard this, and he spit out the cigar. Get serious. Invisible. Shiryu disappeared, and Marco felt a sudden change in his heart. What is going on? Is it the ability of the devil fruit or my own power? Just like the Lunalia clan members, they are born with extremely powerful fire control and regeneration abilities. This is racial talent. He quickly rejected the idea of his special race. After following Whitebeard for so many years, what kind of things have he not seen in the world, and what kind of race have he not heard of? There was no race that could become invisible in his mind, and he had never even heard of it. Then there are only devil fruit abilities. It's a bit tricky. How did he get this ability? Marco said with a headache. His sense of knowledge was immediately released, and he could detect everything within 100 meters of himself. It's useless. Lang Busheng's voice sounded like a Shinigami from hell. Marco's expression changed drastically. It was impossible to turn around this huge body now. But Shiryu's knife felt like it was already on his back. In his haste, he suddenly became wise and instantly resolved from the state of the beast and returned to his original appearance. Shiryu slashed it down with a thunderstorm sharp enough to cut through the space, making a physically uncomfortable sound. He didn't expect Marco to risk giving up his animal form. You know, the damage received by actively releasing the devil fruit status is almost the full amount of the original damage. This is just like in the original plot. In order to protect Luffy, Ace directly released the elemental form of the burning fruit and blocked Akainu's fist with his body. The knife did not miss, because Marco was still within the range that could be harmed. The distance of only 10 meters caused a time difference, which was enough for Marco to react. I saw him holding his fingers together and spinning in circles. Chingyanyan. A blue flame burned around his finger, and then it grew into a huge flame when it saw the wind, and the space could not support it, and a slight explosion broke out. Subsequently, it was replaced by a wild goose, facing the headwind and rushing toward the blood-red slash. Boom. This time it is no longer torn apart. The two attacks are indistinguishable and no one can do anything to the other. It's really hard to do. There's no way I can kill this kid, Shiryu said, rubbing his head. Although he loved killing, he couldn't wait to kill two jailers as soon as he escaped from Impelled Down City. But that doesn't mean that he likes unkillable enemies. He prefers the fear of others before they die and the pleasure of blood-stained swords. That feeling of dividing the flesh, with a slight sense of damping. But Marco is completely unkillable. His fruit ability is like this, unless he is given a seafloor stone, otherwise Blackbeard uses the ability of the dark fruit to restrain him. Speaking of Blackbeard, he couldn't help but look at the battle situation over there. Ace was already bruised at this time, and this was even when Blackbeard didn't take action. Poison Q, Badgers and Lafayette fight against Ace together. These three people are the earliest members of Blackbeard, and they are also the weakest three. But now their strength is different from before. Each of them has eaten the suitable devil fruit. Badges laughed heartily, jumped into the air and punched him. This punch is powerful enough to punch through mountains and rivers. Fire punch. Boom. The two fought and bombed directly. Gia ha ha ha. Badgers laughed. The two of them retreated to the rear at the same time, but his face was full of victory. In just a few months, he was beaten by Ace, and now he can unite three teammates to tie the game. I am no worse than anyone else. Ace wiped away a trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, having just received internal injuries. Ha ha ha. Here I come. Q came over on a white horse with a depressed look on his face. Venomous bee. A burst of green-black flatulence was suddenly released from his hand, and soon many bees came out of the flatulence. Their bodies are black and purple, their tails are swollen, and they have two sharp teeth. Buzz buzz buzz. Advertisement. A swarm of nearly 100 poisonous wasps attacked Ace. Fire ring fire pillar. Hoo ho ho. A fire circle appeared in midair and a thick and large fire pillar erupted from it, burning continuously. Tisk tisk tisk. The poisonous bee had no power to fight back in front of the flames, and turned into gas almost in the blink of an eye. But the poisonous bee is not his move. The poisonous gas after death is the real threat. Swain said speechlessly. This Ace really relies solely on its fruit ability. He looked at it for a long time and found that Ace could only use some basic weapon colors and knowledge colors. It stands to reason that the bloodline of One Piece cannot be without conquerors. It can only be said that he doesn't want to practice this kind of domineering, or maybe he hates everything Roger has brought to him, or maybe Whitebeard's reputation is too big, so people don't dare to really compete with him. Domineering is the existence that is truly superior to everything else. At least until now, Swain has not seen anyone who can leverage the truth of Kaido's famous saying. Not even Blackbeard. He could observe everything in the sea, and Black Tuan discovered that there was no sweet fruit ability among the crew. Which means Raglan works. His eyes suddenly focused on Blackbeard. Because Blackbeard used the power of the dark fruit, he was ready to take down Ace in one fell swoop. Dark water. Ace's expression changed. He was seriously injured by this move in the first place. He quickly threw dozens of fire spears and then quickly retreated. But Blackbeard took action, and they were not a benevolent team. Fanoka fired a bullet. Teleport. Blackbeard appeared directly in front of Ace. What? Ace's pupils shrank. The dark water directly adsorbs Ace, and the black water immediately seeps into the skin and begins to cause random destruction. Blackbeard smiled crazily, and raised his right hand high, surrounded by the dark mist of the dark fruit. Boom. Punch hard. Blackbeard himself has good physical skills, but Ace, who was absorbed by the dark water at this time, is very fragile without the fruit. It was hit into the sea like a cannonball, causing a splash of water. Ace! Marco yelled. He was about to dive out, but was held back by the Shiryu sword slash. Shiryu said disdainfully, "Is it possible that you are still planning to go into the sea to save him? What a bunch of idiots. The blood-red blade is surrounded by domineering energy." Astonishingly, he also knew how to use Batang, forcing Marco to retreat in succession. Ace fell into the sea and felt as if he had lost all strength. His head sank slightly to the right. Swain was seen holding his chin in the sea and mumbling something. How could he not be affected by the seawater? A wave of doubt appeared in my mind, and I wanted to open my mouth to ask for help, but I couldn't open my mouth at all. My eyelids are heavy and I want to sleep. Suddenly, he saw Swain moving. Then he snapped his fingers. A light blue halo appeared on his body, and the seawater was immediately dispersed. Swain was a little disappointed and said, "Just practice more. Can you go back and practice your domineering skills? Don't let your partners worry about you anymore." If it hadn't been for me last time, the old man with white beard would have died there to save you. Although Ace had gained strength, Blackbeard's punch really made him need to relax for a while. Ace was a little sad. He didn't refute what Swain said. He just lowered his head and held his stomach. Swain showed no mercy to him at all, and the words poured out like beans. "If you hadn't met me this time, you would have had no chance of winning against Blackbeard. You wouldn't have investigated clearly before going there, and all of them have become ability users?" Then he snorted coldly, ignored him, and slowly floated to the surface of the sea. Blackbeard was so proud that he didn't even notice the danger coming below. As a sniper, Fanoka is keenly aware of the danger. When he saw that it was Swain, Gujing Bubo's face instantly turned ashen. "Four Emperors Swain is here." A tentacle as sharp as a sword suddenly rushed towards the back of Blackbeard's head. "Captain!" shouted Fanoka. Blackbeard had no time to react and quickly used his ability to teleport Blackbeard to the ship. What a quick response. Swain had to admire. Fanoka's strength and IQ were both online. The shout he just made him dazed for half a second. Taking advantage of this half second, he teleported Blackbeard away. Otherwise, Blackbeard will be severely damaged. Chapter 181 Misunderstanding? Advertisement. Blackbeard landed safely on the boat, and couldn't help but step on it hard. This is the real world. He is not dead yet, and the panic in his eyes has not receded yet. "So close, yeah, you have to be more careful next time," Fanoka reminded. Blackbeard nodded heavily. If it hadn't been for Fanoka, he would have fallen into Swain's hands this time. Then he said with anger in his eyes, "Did you never expect that the dignified four emperors would also use such despicable means as sneak attacks?" Swain was speechless for a long time after hearing this. If you attack someone secretly, you call it a normal method, but if someone attacks you secretly, you call it a treasonous act. He remembers that in the original plot, after Blackbeard became the four emperors, he often used these despicable methods, right? No, it was never used from beginning to end. Let's start with the first sneak attack on Whitebeard and forcibly plunder the shock fruit. Later, for the sake of historical text, he squatted in the grass to sneak attack Luo. Although the direction of history has changed now, Swain saw Blackbeard scolding him for the sneak attack, which was a bit like a thief shouting to catch a thief. "Oh," Swain responded. Coupled with the indifferent expression on his face, Blackbeard was so angry that his face turned red and warm. "Let's go," he ordered. Then Shiryu became invisible and was teleported to the pirate ship by Fanoka. "Can you leave?" Swain chuckled. When Blackbeard saw him smiling, he immediately felt something was wrong. Swain suddenly raised his hands and slowly pulled them up to his head. Ba ba ba. The originally calm sea surface suddenly surged. "Look!" cried Badgers. Everyone followed his strange scream and looked to the horizon at the same time. There seemed to be a huge wave hundreds of meters high, moving quickly towards them. And it's still rising, 100 meters, 200 meters, 300 meters, 500 meters, all the way to the 1,000-meter level. Then everything was like this, surrounding them. Waves thousands of meters high, like layers of steel. forming a huge seawater cage. Horrible, how terrible. When Blackbeard saw this scene, his liver and gallbladder were about to burst. This is not the work of human beings at all, it is entirely divine power, the god who controls the sea. Marco looked at Swain in equal horror. This seems to be the scene of a natural disaster. Everything is so dreamy. Freeze, follow your words. After he shouted violently, the seawater still quickly froze and became a prison of ice and snow. This is the fruit of the sea. Faced with such a powerful enemy, Blackbeard had no intention of resisting. At this moment, all he could think about was running away, not grabbing the fruits of the ocean. Advertisement, excuse me, don't even think about it. And on 9 Snake Island, someone also noticed the 1,000-meter high ice layer. Rayleigh wondered, could it be Kuzan? It seems that only he has that kind of freezing power. How come there is such a high ice layer? Just now I saw that it was just seawater. The so-called speaker has no intention, but the listener has intention. Rayleigh and Hancock looked at each other. There is no doubt that Swain is here. Hancock's heart felt as sweet as honey. With his slender jade hand holding his chin, he began to attack himself again. Rayleigh smiled and shook his head when he saw this, and drank the wine in front of him in one gulp. Then he lay on the ground and squinted for a while. Swain is here, so just take a rest. Naval battle. Swain said he was second, but no one dared to say he was first. Blackbeard's face turned bright and dark when he found that all the escape routes were blocked. Maybe there is a misunderstanding between us? Blackbeard asked. His tone was quite kind, and he had a rare kind smile on his face. Marco was a little shocked when he saw Blackbeard like this. Damn it. What a wild look you had just now. Why are you acting like a mouse now? Misunderstanding. Don't you know it well? Swain said lightly. The tone of his voice was full of gunpowder and quite powerful. Marco and Ace also listened attentively, curious about what kind of grudge Swain could have against Blackbeard. Blackbeard still pretended to be confused and said, I actually just went to 9 Snake Island to find a friend. Swain didn't want to listen to his nonsense at all. Hundreds of kilometer-long seawater tentacles bared their teeth and claws like monsters in the apocalypse. Whoosh whoosh. At the same time, they captured Blackbeard's pirate group. Shiryu took a step forward, with a rare serious look on his face. Slay the dragon. Roar. A blood dragon appeared behind him, lifelike. Then he quickly swung his sword several times, the blood dragon's claws showing their sharpness, and finally turned into several unrivaled slashes. Hundreds of tentacles were cut off directly. The strength is not bad, Swain commented. He took out the ghost belt from his waist and wrapped Haki around it. A random strike. Shiryu quickly counterattacked and swung out at the same time. Boom. Shiryu's slash was directly broken. Chapter 182. Overestimating one's ability. Advertisement, what? Shiryu didn't believe her eyes. He swung another bloody blade that was more powerful than before, and this was enough to stand firm. It seems that after many years of prison life, Shencheng Detention Center is almost out of date, Swain said calmly. In his eyes, Shiryu is very strong, but it's not enough to rank among the top experts. At the very least, his strength is simply not enough for him to use his awakened abilities. Shiryu hates people calling him the director of the detention center in front of Impel Castle. This is a pain point in his life. You brat, don't get too carried away, he said angrily, I haven't shown my true strength yet. Blackbeard listened to Shiryu's arrogance with fear, and even wanted to draw a clear line for him. Brother Liu, those are 4 emperors, how dare you? Also, why are you led by his few words? Right? Shiryu didn't even notice it. He was attracted by Swain's words and just wanted to prove that he was strong. But the 4 emperors are the 4 emperors, and their strength has nothing to do with it. If they were defeated so easily, the newcomers in New World would not selectively challenge the red-haired and ant. And those who challenge aunts account for the majority. As for newcomers, there are very few challenges to Whitebeard and Swain. Often they are beaten away by their fierce generals without even being able to see their true appearance. Otherwise, they will be thrown into the Wano mine for mining. The physiques of these newcomers are 100 times stronger than others, and they are almost ruthless machines when they work. After observing for a period of time, those who are willing to join the Pirate Corps will naturally be absorbed, but the status can only start from the lowest. This is true for all defeated generals, without exception. Shiryu looked at Swain's peerless and graceful appearance, and the jealousy in his heart almost went to his head. Yes. He also had a time like this when he was young, during the period when Cyborg Kong was in power. He became the director of the Propulsion City Detention Center at a young age, and enjoyed great glory for a time. But the good times didn't last long, because of the murderous nature in his heart. He made a heaven-defying mistake and became a prisoner from a high position. The huge contrast did not make his hatred and murderous nature disappear, but instead intensified it a lot. Go to hell. Shiryu's eyes were red, like a wild beast. Swain frowned, wondering why Shiryu hated him so much. Wu Zi shook his head, and if he couldn't figure it out, he would just kill him. What a crime! Shiryu yelled. This was something he realized through hatred after being imprisoned in Pushing City. A terrifying breath of death hit his face, making people unable to help but hold their breath. There was a black and resentful dark cloud hovering above Shiryu's head, and slowly a ghostly sound came from inside, which was so harsh that it made the hair stand on end and made the hair stand on end. Swain didn't feel scared because of this, he just felt that the other party was a little overestimating his capabilities. Just do more useless work, but, Swain paused before saying, I admire your courage. He walked on the sea as if on flat ground. Ripples slowly spread out under his feet like blooming flowers. Poseidon's furious lotus, clang, clank, clang, clang. Suddenly, the sound of elegant music came from the sea, and then the sea surface thousands of meters around began to become turbulent. Swish swish swish. Like life, the seawater began to shape a lotus shape. The lace, the stamens, the last flower heart is at Swain's feet. With a thought, he looked at Shiryu, who looked like a Shinigami, with sharp eyes. After the lotus flower formed, there were sparkling ripples. Whirring whirring. The wind became very strong, making people's clothes rustle. Go! Swain shouted softly. Shiryu's heinous crimes are not the sword skills of past swordsmen. He actually used Thunder Rain as his main sword, surrounded by hundreds of ghost heads, and braved the dense hellfire. Die. Advertisement ah. The howls of ghosts and wolves continued, and Swain had to seal his ears with domineering force. When the two of them fought, they were both fierce and did not give them a chance to test each other. Kukakuku. It was like the sound of a skull being slowly flattened with a saw. The evil ghosts encountered something that really frightened them. The angry lotus was purifying them, and they roared and tried to run back, but Shiryu was still holding the knife, and anyone who stepped back was chopped into nothingness. The center of the lotus formed by the seawater occasionally exudes a hint of blue breath, and if you get close, it will be frozen into ice. Even the soul body is the same. On the battlefield, it was obvious that Shiryu could no longer hold on any longer, and his domineering energy was about to be exhausted. At this time, his throat suddenly became sweet and his face turned black. He just swallowed the bloody blood. Blackbeard watched the battle between the two attentively, holding on to a glimmer of hope. I hope Swain is not as powerful as the rumors say, and I hope they are all false. Only in this way can you make a comeback, finally get the ocean fruit and become the next 4 emperors. But, things went counterproductive. Swain's, Poseidon wrathful lotus, faced Shiryu's heinous crimes and pushed past Shiryu without any hindrance. Van Oka. Blackbeard shouted heavily. Clear. Swain already knew their routine, and he appeared next to Shiryu in a flash. There were several huge chains chasing Swain behind him, and Van Oka aimed at Shiryu and fired. Swain waved his hand, and the protective layer of seawater blocked the bullets. Probably it's the ability to change positions in space, Swain said, highlighting Van Oka's ability. There is always a bullet fired before each position change, and some strange things always appear in the original position after the position change. No one noticed these small details during the battle. Swain originally noticed this when he was observing the battle in the sea. It also means that as long as Van Oka's transfer object is stuck, his ability will be of no use. At the very least, one arm was cut off in terms of support. Van Oka's expression changed drastically, and he was shocked. Transfer. Shiryu did not appear on the ship, and the bullets fired were blocked. He was a little unsure and said, Transfer. Blackbeard seemed to sense something was wrong and asked, What's going on? Van Oka said with a gloomy face, My ability has been discovered by Swain. When? Blackbeard asked in surprise. They had only met for about 10 minutes, right? This insight horrified him. What a monster. Whoosh whoosh. The chain was wrapped around Shiryu's hand, and the armed color covered it in the blink of an eye. This is almost the same as being locked with a sea tower stone, and the feeling of powerlessness comes instantly. He wanted to use his abilities to escape, but his figure was locked and looming. Swain snorted coldly, and several thin branches sprouted from the iron chain, with their heads like arrows, piercing into his limbs. Shiryu was in pain, groaned and stared at Swain. You seem to have been given up, Swain retorted. Shiryu endured the pain and turned around, only to see that the black-bearded man had turned around and was about to run away. We just have mutual interests. Do you think this will make me sad? Swain was quite speechless. Did he owe Shiryu? Why do you like tit for tat with me so much? Swain did not answer him, but left him alone. He himself is chasing Blackbeard. Chapter 183 The tree fell and the mud monkeys scattered. Advertisement. This. Can Dad beat him? Ace stared at Swain's leaving figure in shock. I was speechless for a long time, and I could hear the sound of waves lapping quietly. Easily destroying the 5th Emperor, Blackbeard pirates, it can be seen that he did not use all his strength. Are the 4 emperors so strong? When I usually stay with my dad, it seems, I have never seen him use his full strength. All opponents were killed in one move, but it was a bit difficult to deal with the 3 members of Blackbeard by himself, but Swain could destroy them with his hands. Sure enough, only after comparison can we see the difference. Swain's words echoed in my mind. The more you learn, the more you practice. Stop being a drag and practice your domineering energy. Ace murmured to himself. Is it domineering? More than one person mentioned this? Once when he was in West Blue, he met a person who also warned him, saying, practice domineering as the first step to becoming a strong person. At that time, he didn't take it seriously at all. Relying on the fruits and his own physical skills, he had few rivals among his peers. Even some veteran strong men were defeated by him. Until later he joined Whitebeard, the most powerful man he had ever seen in his life. Although he was defeated, he won the family love he wanted. Under the protection of Whitebeard, he has no opponent. That swollen heart is beating all the time, always wanting to rush out. Later. The consequence of this incident was the outbreak of the war on top. If Swain had not arrived in time and attacked the Holy Land, I am afraid that Lil Oz would not be the only one who lost his loved ones in the battle. He even said that his father might die in the battle. The two people who once warned him about practicing domineering are now extremely powerful. 4 Emperors Redheads. 4 Emperors Swain. The seal in my heart that hated Roger's bloodline gradually loosened. Perhaps. Marco shrugged upon hearing this and said, in a few years, Dad will no longer be my opponent, time is not forgiving. He looked at Ace who was in a daze and called him. Let's go back. Swain is chasing him, so he can't do anything. Ace reacted from the memory and responded, good. Blackbeard's ship is called the Great Raft. The whole body is large, and the cabin is composed of independent areas. Each area is called a certain captain. They usually stay in their own areas, and they only come together when they hunt people with abilities together. At this time, several people on the boat gathered together. We should run away separately, Lafayette suggested. His shoulder was burned by Ace's fire, but he felt no pain. The aura of death in his heart shrouded his heart and could not be dissipated. The fear was already greater than the pain in my body. Run separately. Blackbeard's eyes circled. That's fine, Finoka replied cogently. Badgers was a little nervous and said fearlessly, we will definitely defeat him if we work together. Duque lay weakly on Pegasus' back and nodded in agreement. But these are the thoughts of their old people, and other new members naturally have evil intentions. Advertisement, especially the strong man who came out of the Impel City. Blackbeard glanced at them inadvertently and couldn't tell what their expressions were. Old fox. He cursed in his mind. Without even thinking about it, he knew that these people were probably thinking of parting ways. The last time he provoked Whitebeard and was hunted down, it was within the tolerance range. This time he was hunted down by 4 emperors again. As long as you are not stupid, you will definitely not choose to go to the dark side with Blackbeard. Even though there were a few minions shouting to leave. Blackbeard's face immediately became gloomy, and the deadly black mist spread from his feet, and unknowingly climbed onto those people. Huh? What is this? One of them suddenly said, but they immediately recognized what this familiar black mist was, and it was the only one of its kind. Captain. Don't. Dark cave. Blackbeard ignored his companion's calls for help, and instead looked at these core members. Then let's go separately, Blackbeard ordered, but how to distribute this? Several people looked at each other and silently took a step back. These people were all brought in by Shangsheng. The tree fell and the mud monkeys scattered. Blackbeard was angry in his heart, but it was hard to get angry. He could only say, then let's do it. Blackbeard left with his veteran cadres Badgers, Poison Q, and Van Oka. Holyland Wolf and Wine Barrel left this place immediately, not wanting to offend Swain, a monster anymore. After seeing the two people leaving, Blackbeard finally couldn't bear it anymore and cursed, what a bunch of idiots. Captain, what should we do now? Van Oka asked. Blackbeard thought for a moment and said, we cannot abandon this ship for the time being. Van Oka, you can take the helm. Your fruit power will make it easier to escape. The 3 of us will try our best to attract that brat Swain. Okay. Van Oka did not feel discouraged, but nodded heavily. Blackbeard felt a little better when he saw him like this. This is a companion. Only then can you be a partner worth trusting. ... The Wine Barrel and the Wolf took a small wooden boat and began to escape. I said, that guy with black beard is very happy and angry. Wine Barrel said with his long tongue hanging out. His face looked slightly drunk, but his eyes were unusually sober. Who knows? But we probably won't have any contact with him from now on. He won't be able to give us what we want. The evil wolf shook his head and said. The two of them were once inmates on the 6th floor of Impel Down City. After being in prison for more than 10 years, the friendship is naturally deeper than that of Blackbeard. How about we join Swain? Zhugong suddenly suggested, I heard that he has been recruiting strong people recently. That might be a good place to go. The evil wolf felt that his thinking was a little too naive, and said, what if he doesn't accept us? Wouldn't it be like throwing himself into a trap? 2. Come and taste the wine that Blackbeard hid. I stole it for him. The Wine Barrel said, holding the wolf's neck. Swain stepped on a Poseidon, which he had temporarily recruited from the sea. He discovered that after awakening from the ocean fruit, he could actually hear the communication sounds of marine life. You can even communicate with them, but it's just a little difficult. Just like the Poseidon at his feet with a head like a golden spear and strange black scales on its back. Chapter 184. A loser. Advertisement. Turn around. Swain ordered the Poseidon at his feet. Alas, what are you doing? Swain made several more gestures in succession, but it still couldn't understand it and rushed forward. Helpless, he had to forcefully change its direction. Although they can communicate, they do not communicate like humans. He could only feel that the Poseidon was very close to him, and it would come over as soon as he waved. But if you really want to learn the system language, you can only learn it by going to Fishman Island. After all, he and the Poseidon species do not belong to the same species. Suddenly, the Poseidon underfoot suddenly became restless, and its tail swung back and forth. Swain understood that this was the attack and collision prepared by the Poseidon class when it discovered the enemy. I saw his fish head beginning to poke upward, and the gun on the fish head was shining like a peerless weapon. Swain used water waves to explore the situation ahead and quickly received feedback. The wolf and the barrel. It seems that Blackbeard split into 2 groups and escaped. But he still guessed wrong. The cautious Blackbeard divided his troops into 3 groups. Unless Swain could clone himself, he could only catch them all and chase them, which would greatly increase their probability of survival. He even said that he could survive if he was lucky. The Poseidon class is getting faster and faster. It is not without reason that it can be called the king of the offshore. Not only is it fast and its attacks are fierce, its lord consciousness is also particularly serious. Once someone breaks into its territory, it will inevitably be attacked. This is why they can dominate the windless zone, but few people in the New World regard them as a threat. Few. The Poseidon jumped out of the water and charged at the wine barrel and the wolf ship with great force. Where did the bed bugs come from? Wine barrel's cheeks were so red that blood dripped from his cheeks, and he curled up his big tongue and said disdainfully. He had long known that there was a danger, but after investigating, he found that it was a Poseidon, so he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, it's not even meal time yet. San Juan Wolf simply ignored the movement behind him. He was not interested in killing a Poseidon at all. He held the meat leg in his hand and ate it with a satisfied expression on his face. Let me warm you up. Wine barrel said drunkenly. He took a sip of wine and staggered as if he was about to collapse at any moment. Hoo ho ho. From his mouth came blazing fire. Zhugong soon felt something was wrong. Why did this Poseidon not have any damage on its body, but it still rushed forward? What a ghost. He secretly groaned in his heart. Bang. His hands immediately became armed and he caught the Poseidon-type headshot. The huge impact caused the ship to shake violently, and the wolf's eyes were directly poked by the shaking bones. He screamed in pain. You're such a loser, Chote. You can't even deal with a Poseidon. It would be more suitable for you to change the name of a wine barrel to a rice barrel from now on. The evil wolf cursed. Let me show you my strength. The wine barrel first held a Poseidon that was more than 10 times larger than him in one hand, and held the wine in the other hand and poured it into his mouth. Tick tock tick. There's not enough to drink. He threw the bucket into the sea. The last few drops are enough. Winemaker's fire. Wine barrel shouted drunkenly. He blew out a breath first, and then puffed it up. A more coquettish fire came out of his mouth than before. Aim better. Why are you spraying fire next to it? The wolf complained loudly. The Poseidon's eyes rolled around, but he could only feel that the fire was only a little warm and could not hurt it. I feel more confident in my heart, and the strength on the top of my head is a little stronger. The wine barrel was reminded of this and almost fell into the sea. Fortunately, the stability was relatively good and it did not fall into the sea. Isn't that right? Even if I didn't burn it, it should be dead. He is still somewhat confident in his own strength. This fire can burn Poseidons into shriveled corpses if you get close to them. Unless, he squinted his eyes clearer. Swine, he shouted. He woke up instantly from the wine. The evil wolf was called by him and quickly turned his head to look. Really, behind the Poseidon class, stood a young man with a smile on his face. This smile did not make them feel like a spring breeze, but made them feel cold all over. No wonder I can't kill this Poseidon. It turns out Swain is causing trouble. The evil wolf immediately slapped him in the face and shouted, I'm still thinking about this at this time. Throw it away quickly, let's run. As he spoke, he turned the ship around and prepared to leave. Swain jumped off the Poseidon's back and tapped his feet lightly on the water. Want to run? It's a bit late. His eyes glowed with a blue light. Base. Thousands of meters of sea turned into an ice rink. Together with the ship and the wolf at the helm, they have all turned into a craft ice sculpture. The wine barrel threw the Poseidon in his hand onto the ice. Taking advantage of the renewed drunkenness, the fear of Swain just now weakened a little. 4 Emperors Swain, I am no match for you. Swain didn't say anything, but he suddenly thought of a fun idea. Then, he continued to float in the air, with a smile on his face. After hearing what Zhugong said, he held his chin and pretended to think for a while before nodding in agreement. But please let me join you. Swain felt a little surprised. He was also an inmate on the 6th floor of Impel Down City. How could Shiryu be so strong-willed and dare to attack Swain without being humble or arrogant? This barrel chote didn't even have the courage to take action. Seeing that Swain had no intention of moving at all, I thought he didn't believe him. The wine barrel pointed at the wolf behind him and said, to show my loyalty to you, I can kill him with my own hands. Swain sneered in his heart. To interfere with my companions when they are most in danger is in line with my stereotype of them. Anyone who can enter the 6th floor of the Impel Down City is either extremely evil or notoriously evil. Is he also willing to join me? If there was only you, then there would be no need for you to exist at all. Swain said coldly. The wine barrel heard something interesting. He quickly agreed. My brother will definitely be willing too. We have discussed it in advance. Advertisement. Swain said. Oh, let's unfreeze him while he's still alive. How? How to unfreeze it? Isn't your mouth capable of spitting fire? Roast it with fire. Swain could have released the control of the wolf with just a thought. But he doesn't. The expression on Li Kei's face really made him feel sick. The other party was a little helpless. His fire breath was always used for killing people. He could burn the wolf to death if he didn't make the right move to save people. But from Swain's tone, he must die even if the wolf dies. It's really difficult. After stopping for a while, Swain knew that Highhybrid had probably disappeared without a trace. And, now that I'm chasing Blackbeard, they will probably use various means to confuse him and cause him to lose his way. The gain outweighs the loss. It's better to make good use of these two people in front of you. The wine barrel adjusted its breathing, and then took a sip of wine. This time he was not drunk, but extremely sober. Then a stream of flames burst out. Squeak, 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 the ice cubes are gradually melting. After a while, the wolf's feet returned to normal. He thought to himself, why does Swain's freezing power feel so much stronger than Qingzi's? It took me a long time to just melt my feet. He wiped the sweat from his face. He had never done such a delicate job in his life. Big wine and heavenly fire. He waved his hands forward, and then a lot of bubbles smelling of alcohol appeared. Despair. With a snap of his fingers, several flames popped out of the wine bubbles and began to burn slowly. This time the process accelerated so quickly that all the ice cubes melted in just a few breaths. Seeing that the wolf was not dead, Wine Barrel felt reassured, and then turned to look at Swain. Signal him that things are done. Swain was observing the whole process and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If I use him to grill meat for me, then I don't have to worry about my grilled meat getting burnt. Okay. Swain clapped and walked towards them. Zhugong's face was a little rosy, and there was nothing unusual about it, but his heart was full of anger. He could see that Swain was clearly playing a trick on him, but so what? If he dares to resist, he will probably be killed in less than 3 rounds. He doesn't have Shiryu's strength, nor does he have Shiryu's courage. Only by learning to be patient can you survive. The evil wolf didn't have the desire to survive as he did. He, who was always careless, came up and said, kill or behead, it's up to you. Swain snorted coldly. Conqueror's domineering energy suddenly surged like a surge, and the surge seemed to be able to swallow everything. The feeling of fear instantly enveloped their minds and lingered, and even their breathing seemed to stop. This state lasted for half a minute before it stopped, and then Swain was heard saying calmly. Those who follow me will prosper, and those who go against me will perish. This is a naked threat. This voice seems to come from eternity, it is deafening and enlightening. When the wolf and the wine barrel heard this, their bodies seemed to have been immobilized, and time seemed to have stopped. Those who obey me will prosper. What a domineering word. Only a peerless powerhouse like Swain can say that. It's just that domineering is domineering, but it can't make the two people in front of him completely surrender to Swain. No matter how you wash the old fried dough sticks, there will always be layers of greasiness. The wine barrel suddenly turned around and slapped the evil wolf. What did you say? You dare to take action, lousy really gives you face. The wolf suddenly said angrily. Zhugong just kept winking at him, but the other party ignored him at all. He grabbed his neck and went up to punch Zhugong in the eye. Swain was speechless when he saw this scene. Secretly, Blackbeard has a unique vision. He is a drunkard who is greedy for life and afraid of death, and the other is a giant with a simple mind and well-developed limbs. Swain clicked his fingers twice in succession, and the two people who were fighting each other suddenly felt a light touch under their feet, and they were actually wrapped in layers of bubbles and floated up. The evil wolf punched hard, but it couldn't be broken at all. It was like hitting cotton. What is this? The wolf asked, scratching his head. Can you two calm down for a while? Swain shouted. Swain's original serious mood was mostly dissipated by these two lively things. If you want to survive, I can give you a chance. Let Lousy out, I want to duel with you. Don't think that because you are 4 emperors, I will be afraid of you. The evil wolf put his hands on the bubble, as if he wanted to burst it. I saw that his body was getting bigger and bigger, and it seemed that he could break through this restriction. San Juan Wolf is a person with the ability to eat the paramesha fruit, the big fruit. He can make his body larger or smaller, but the reduction cannot be smaller than the original body. Then I'll let you be quiet for a while. Swain directly let the blue fluorescent bubbles fall downward until they submerged below the sea surface. Then there was a boo sound. The protective layer broke and he fell completely into the sea. What was a bit strange was that he did not sink to the bottom of the sea, but was stuck 5 meters below the sea surface. He didn't even make any extra movements. He just drank water with his mouth open, and the look of horror in his eyes could tell that he was a living person. Swain specially gave him something special, which increased the pressure of the seawater and squeezed him unable to move. Looking at the wine barrel, I felt a little numb, and the evil wolf kept shouting something. He could read it as, save me. It seemed that when death really came, he would not be the only one who would be afraid, so why should he suffer this? I will obey your orders. Barrel said respectfully. You can join me if you want, but only if you come with the head of Blackbeard. Hearing this, Zhugong immediately felt troubled. After spending some time with Blackbeard, he knew that his character was very cautious, and this attack on Nine Snakes Island was extremely brave. Without a perfect chance of winning, he would not take action at all. As for assassinating him, the feasibility of this matter is really low. He immediately shook his head and said, this is impossible, Blackbeard is too cautious. Swain thought it was impossible, but he was just bargaining with him and didn't want to push him into a hurry. Then what do I need you for? Swain said in a rather angry tone. Zhugong remained silent, he really gave up his dignity in order to survive. After a while, Swain slowly said, then lower your requirements. Just kill an old member next to him at will. I can do this. Zhugong replied immediately. What are the strengths of the old members? Although he usually lives in a dream, he still has a clear understanding of Blackbeard's combat power. Even if the old member ate the fruit, in his eyes, it was just a delicacy fed to the wild boar, a waste of natural resources, and not worth it at all. What about you? Swain asked the wolf who was still drinking water. The latter only felt that his body was about to lose its strength, and his pupils began to gradually dilate. He was stuck in the sea and could not move. It was just like an ordinary person who was tied to a heavy object and sank into the sea. Scared and helpless. After hearing Swain's words, he no longer cared about being spineless and nodded quickly. Swain laughed, but it was just a laugh. The criminal on the 6th floor of Impel Down City was thinking of his 2 children in fear. They killed more people than they ever ate. Let these people bite Blackbeard and let him experience the feeling of being betrayed by his companions. Chapter 185 Dead. Advertisement. Swain looked thoughtfully at the 2 figures leaving in embarrassment, calculating their interests in his heart. He felt that letting them go was more useful than killing them. At least he could plant a time bomb around Blackbeard. And he didn't worry about betraying him at all, because Swain shot a small C4 directly into their hearts. This is a new scientific and technological invention of Wano country. Originally, Wano country had similar technology. In order to restrain Yamato, Kaido placed a seastone bomb around her neck. As long as she goes against Kaido's wishes, the bomb can be detonated by Kaido at any time, and her head will be blown to pieces. On this basis, Swain gave up on this bloated and heavy-looking collar. Let Luo participate with them instead. Luo was not sent by Swain to supervise, but actually participated in the research and development, because as a ship's doctor, he knew a lot about the heart and could even take out many living hearts for on-site research at any time. Luo's arrival was an even greater boost, and he quickly developed and delivered the technology Swain wanted. He even gave it a name, Zhao Slave. Once the dragon slave is injected into the heart, it will have very few restrictions on the ability of the Esper, allowing them to maximize their abilities. If someone wanted to remove it, it would be easy to do a heart opening operation. Take out the needle-like dragon slave from the heart. But, looking at the whole world, Luo dared to have the confidence to do such an operation except for the fruit of the operation. If other people really dared to reveal his heart, it would probably be no different than killing him. It is extremely difficult. It is also a severe test for the doctor's skills. Swain also made it clear to the 2 of them the horror involved, and naturally they did not dare to disobey Swain's orders and instructions. This is not the poison candy I made up last time to scare Raglan, it is a real danger. As for Shiryu, when Swain returned, he found that he was still hanging on the chain. The blood scab has stuck to it, and if you move it even a little bit, you will feel extremely painful. The sea breeze blowing in the face, carrying salt water, made the already painful wound even more unbearable. Sensing someone coming, Shiryu didn't even bother to raise his head. You know I can break free and escape. Swain was stunned for a moment, then thought for a moment and said, do you know that you will die if you escape? After all, there is no place to land outside of the ice near here. Even if his body is overdrawn, he will faint and die in the sea if he can't hold on. Poseidon species are rampant in this water area, and it is rare to see a ship here for a month. This is based on the fact that he is not a person with abilities. People with abilities don't even have a chance to swim. Shiryu didn't answer. He held it slightly with his left hand, sweat broke out on his face, and pulled off the chain with a groan. Hiss. There was a bloody gash on his left hand, and 2 centimeters of skin was torn off. Under the exposure to the sun, it quickly changed from red to dotted frosty white. Swain had some inexplicable admiration in his heart, but he just thought he was a ruthless person. He is quite durable, and it hurts just looking at him, let alone Shiryu himself. We shouldn't have been enemies. Swain said with some emotion. According to the original plot, Shiryu should become a swordsman of a lower echelon than Haki. You know, Haki is strong enough to fight Shanks with both hands intact. In fact, Kendo requires talent, and hard work can't make up for it much. One of the best examples of this is conquerors. Only one person in a million can appear, and it is not enough to have conquerors, you must also learn to use it. Conqueror's entanglement is another way to distinguish these kings who have conquerors. Very typical ones are Mingay and Kaido. If neither party eats the fruit, Kaido can still kill Mingay instantly. Domineering above all else, and there are only a handful of people who can use it to perfection. Having said that, with Swain's talent, if he really takes the path of swordsmanship, it won't take long for him to catch up with Shiryu. Nothing else. Advertisement. Conqueror's entanglement makes your starting point as high as the sky, and everyone can only look up. During Swain's fight with Shiryu, he could sense that he also had conquerors. It's just that it can't be as simple as eating and drinking. In fact, conquerors like this has no other effect besides scaring people. This means that Shiryu's ability to reach this point by relying on knowledge and weaponry is enough to prove his talent for swordsmanship. After hearing Swain's words, Shiryu raised her head and stared into his eyes. Those eyes are like you encounter a beast in the dark, sharp and arrogant. Really? Then we should become partners. Don't be kidding. Gia ha 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 ha. There is no better way than this. If I lose today, you should kill me. If you lose, I will kill you too. Seeing his violent and murderous aura, Swain understood that he were not on the same path at all, and put away his initial intention. Likewise, what was put away was the pitiful feeling towards him in my heart. In that case, Shiryu interrupted Swain and shouted, "Wait." Swain gave him a puzzled look. "Can you promise me something before you kill me?" he said dejectedly. This was the first time Swain had seen him show such emotion. Could Shiryu still have feelings for human beings? He is a ruthless life-harvesting machine who only wants to satisfy his selfish perverted desires. Even if you have seen the Red Earl who drinks human blood, he doesn't just kill people on sight. They just catch people who can recover more blood, but they don't kill them but raise them. Although this is also very abnormal, at least the people are not dead yet. After drinking for a while, Red Earl got tired of it. It will automatically let him go, and then catch the next wave of leaks to harvest. This is also the reason why Swain can indulge him so much. Although a person's personality changes with the environment, and the Red Earl's abnormality is a character flaw caused by misfortunes in his childhood, he actually wants to know whether Shiryu is acquired, or whether he is born with a cruel personality. Out of curiosity, he asked, "If I kill someone for you, I will refuse." Shiryu knew that he was bound to die, but his initial jealousy towards Swain disappeared. He laughed loudly and said, "I have killed too many people in my life, more than the salt you have ever eaten. The pile of corpses can weigh you down and you can't breathe." Swain did not speak when he heard this, but just watched with cold eyes. The more people he kills, the more sense of accomplishment Shiryu feels. "If you tell me these useless things again, you can go to hell to report now. I hope you can take away this thunderstorm from my waist and don't let it fall into the bottom of the sea and become unknown." Swain leaned over and pulled out Thunderstorm. The blade of the blade is shiny and cold as ice. Just holding it in my hand sends a chill through my body. Is it resisting? Swain did not expect that the knife had spirituality, and the violent energy was eroding Swain's consciousness. Demon sword. Swain secretly thought. But you like erosion, right? Swain raised the corner of his mouth. Whisper. More violent and powerful than the thunderstorm, Conqueror suppressed its sense of autonomy at lightning speed. When Shiryu saw Leiyu being suppressed, the last hope in his heart was shattered. Swain raised Thunderstorm and said slowly, "Kill you with your sword. This is the best result." Sad life. When Shiryu heard the last taunt, veins popped up on his forehead, and he raised his head to retort. But the only thing that greeted us was the shadow of the cold sword. Poof. The head was separated and blood spurted out. After a while, two popping sounds were heard. The head and body fell into the sea. Swain did not collect his body. The best place for such a demon who enjoyed killing people was in the belly of a fish. Chapter 186 Surprise. Advertisement. 9 Snake Island. Swain stepped onto the island again, feeling a little happy. At this time, he was like a child about to buy his favorite toy. The joy in my heart seems to be materialized, hanging on the corners of my mouth, bathed in the spring breeze. It had been a long time since I last visited this place. Hancock's figure appeared in my mind, and I couldn't help but feel a little apologetic. People have 7 emotions and 6 desires, and they will always be troubled by sentimentality. And this lovesickness is a kind of suffering. When he was on the Beehive Island, he had no time to think about the love between children. The world government and Marine were waiting for him to make a mistake and then destroy him in one fell swoop. As for why you were staring at him, because his ambition is already very obvious, that is to overthrow the rule of the world government. This was something they couldn't bear. Although the other 3 members of the 4 emperors were ambitious, they were not as crazy as Swain. So I just stayed in the New World and never caused trouble in the first half of the Grand Line. Swain broke this convention, and even did such a big thing as a sneak attack on the Holy Land Marijoa. If the world government had not suppressed this news, I would have become a laughing stock. He naturally becomes as dangerous as the revolutionary dragon, so his every move is watched by the world government. Therefore, he had no contact with Hancock at all after becoming 4 emperors. The world government can't do anything to him, but it can easily arrest Hancock. He comforted himself with this apology in his heart, thinking that he was protecting her. The island is lush and green with lush trees. Usually at this time, there is smoke from the cooking pots and the chirping of birds. Swain only felt a little quiet, and his steps were quite loud without any concealment. But even this did not disturb the birds. Unless the bird has been spooked. Sure enough, the next moment, several sharp spears piercing the air came from all directions, and they all hit his vital points. Looking at the scale of this attack, any unknown living creature that breaks into the island will be killed. The vigilance is several times higher than usual. Swain felt that this scene seemed familiar. He was treated like this when he first bought it, but it ended up being like this the second time. He shook his head and smiled, and left that position in the blink of an eye, dodging all attacks. "Sister, he's gone," a crisp girl said. The voice sounded like she was about 12 or 13 years old. Swain had already infiltrated the entire island into the surveillance, water eye, and the fluctuations immediately spread to the girl's appearance in his mind. Her eyes were as bright as stars, sparkling with intelligence and curiosity, as if she could see into everything in the world. His face is still a bit childish, but his eyebrows reveal a kind of tenacity that refuses to admit defeat. Her short black hair shimmered in the sun, swaying gently with her steps, looking lively yet steady. Swain was immediately curious. This girl didn't look like someone from Nine Snakes Island. Although she is a bit wild, she is not like the women on Nine Snakes Island. She is well dressed and has a luxurious temperament. Grr. Swain used seawater to condense into a clone, and then appeared in front of the girl. Here, come and catch him. Surprise suddenly appeared in the girl's eyes. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Really. After she finished speaking, some women in revealing clothing and animal furs appeared in the forest. Advertisement. Get him. Leave him to his majesty. The leading woman ordered. Swain's clone cannot speak and can only fight. They took the lead and took advantage of the terrain to shuttle between the trees. Stabilize his limbs, the leading sister explained. But even if Swain is a clone, they are not able to compete. He pushed it forward with both hands, and the blue ripple spread out like sand in the wind. All the weapons were absorbed into the clone's hands, and then inserted into the ground to watch everyone. Swain looked around him in a room and looked at the decoration inside curiously. Fan Oka is considered a think tank in the black group. Even the gaze level is almost the same as that of a real person. I'm Swain. Swain had never played against Raglan and had no idea of his abilities. After thinking about it for a moment, he realized that it was impossible. There is no way I would be stupid enough to return to this dangerous place again. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew by. HMPH. I advise you to quickly become your original self. Is it like this? He touched his face with his hand, and his true face appeared. Wouldn't it mean that you can order yourself at any time? Stubborn. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. The terrain was instantly changed and divided into distinct areas. With a sudden force, the room collapsed. Who are you? A cold man suddenly appeared. Wrong. Swain's eyes were filled with surprise when he saw it, and he said, it's actually Fan Oka. Is help coming? When Raglan saw that he had really turned into Swain, his heart suddenly broke out. Soon. One of his men replied. Ha 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 ha. Raglan laughed wildly. Do you think I'm a fool? Haven't you seen what that person looks like? The clone gradually turned into water vapor, and the real body and the clone changed places. It's a little scary for him. This imitation is too similar. He really didn't want to see Swain. Snow. He was thinking in his mind that various Yuki snake gods gathered on a small nine-snake island, and he must meet them all today. The appearance of Swain's clone can be fabricated at will. Back off. The leader shouted. He is a capable person, we are no match for him. Swain didn't want to argue with him, so he simply pointed to the door and window of the room. As this? Swain asked doubtfully. I told you, I'm Swain. He spread his hands helplessly. Then, he saw that the other person was becoming more and more real, and he might not be able to tell the difference later. Chapter 187 Tenderness. Advertisement. Raglan's pupils shrank, feeling that his proud ability could be broken so easily. Even Blackbeard could suppress him for a short period of time and realize that he was not at the same level as the person in front of him. Making a slight bend with his palm, he once again created a room, but this time the room was very small and in an inconspicuous place in the distance. The clone smiled lightly. Do you want to escape? Raglan thought he would be able to escape, so he responded with a grin. So what? You can't stop me, really. Domain. Swain shouted softly. Bow. An invisible blue wave emitted from the ground, and then formed a barrier wall within 100 meters. Huh. Raglan was surprised. He found that he was still in the same place, and suddenly felt a bad feeling in his heart. Space transposition. He believed it was true and called it out again. Still not moving. How is this going? You found out that you can't run away, right? The clone joked. Raglan looked a little frightened and asked, who are you? I said it all. Raglan's eyes suddenly widened, looking at the scene in front of him in disbelief. I saw the enemy's figure in front gradually turning into mist, spreading to the rear, and in the blink of an eye he changed position and transformed into his true form. Swain, shouted Raglan. He seemed to have seen a ghost and just wanted to stay away from this person. Why do you run away when you see me? Swain always had a smile on his lips. The sea water under my feet suddenly was like lightning, sucking into the soil from all directions. Raglan then became incapacitated. Swain used water mist to block his movement, using the power of the ocean to squeeze the air. The water mist was like a sponge, squeezing towards Raglan. Swain walked up to him with his hands behind his back and said, I'm very happy that you did something this time. Yes, really, Raglan said a little flattered. But in his heart, he couldn't be happy at all and just wanted to stay away from this man. Where's Hancock? Swain asked again. He gently provoked with his fingers, and the surrounding space changed, and a tower more than 10 meters high rose up under their feet. She should be recovering at the palace, Raglan replied. Recuperate, Swain said to himself calmly. You can't tell what his expression is at all. But Raglan could feel that there was a violent aura passing through his body just now. Although it was only for a moment, it also made him feel like falling into an ice cellar. It seems that the person in front of him is not as ruthless as the rumors said. Could it be that Hancock is the woman he cares about? I understand. If you want any reward, you can go to Fengchao Island and ask Roland for it. You can have as much money as you want. Raglan nodded honestly, and then felt his body relax. When he looked back, Swain had disappeared. Probably going to see the pirate empress. In the palace, Hancock is sitting on the throne, and below him are his two sisters and Granny Nee. Rayleigh usually would not choose to enter the palace. Within a few hours after Blackbeard left, he searched the entire island and found no other forces involved. These people are so rude, how can they treat my compatriots like this? Hancock said with indignation. His little face turned red with anger, he crossed his arms over his chest and looked at a list in his hand. These are the injured in this sneak attack, as well as the soldiers who died in battle. Sister, don't be angry again. The two sisters quickly tried to persuade Hancock. Blackbeard's sneak attack was so sudden that we had no time to prepare. Hancock knew there was no use getting angry now. But I'm always a little sad and angry. Why didn't this Blackbeard attack other Shichibukai? Why did he find himself here instead? She didn't want to think too much about it. Hancock felt that these were just mediocre and obvious answers. Your Majesty, there is someone outside the palace asking to see you. A female guard in front of the palace knelt on one knee and asked. Hancock was annoyed, putting his fingers on his forehead and rubbing it gently. No, Hancock said coldly. Drive him away now, the guard immediately ordered. After a while, Hancock was falling asleep. The guard walked in again, hesitated for a moment and then said, that man has something important to say, and he must see you. Although Hancock said it was annoying, she would have ignored these people asking for an audience if Blackbeard hadn't made a sneak attack. But the other party said that there was something important, and she was worried that it might be something bad like Blackbeard's sneak attack. It would be better to be prepared if she knew about it in advance. This time she changed her words. Let him in. The female guard wiped the tired sweat from her head, and then came to the palace gate without stopping. Your Majesty has summoned you. Take care of yourself, she said in an accusing tone. After all, if Swain hadn't repeatedly asked to see him, she really wouldn't be so tired from running. Swain smiled and said, thank you very much. Don't try to get close to me, hurry up and leave. The guard said meticulously. He didn't take it lightly just because of Swain's thanks. After carefully checking that there were no assassination weapons on him, he took him in. It's okay, I know the way. The guards had never met Swain, and only a few people on Nine Snakes Island knew Swain's identity. This was not deliberately kept mysterious, because he didn't want others to think of Nine Snakes Island when they mentioned Swain, which would be a big disaster for the people here. Just imagine, in a country that is full of women, and is closely related to the world government, the largest force in the world, they will immediately go crazy to test the Nine Snakes Island. At that time, Hancock's danger may be even more dangerous. This is actually protection in disguise. You know, the female guard asked with some doubts. Yes, when Swain nodded, he thought that the security inside was tighter and nothing would happen, so he let him in. Walking inside, the building has not changed, but many decorations have. It's even cuter, like the Instagram style of a childlike girl. It's not as big as Swain's Beehive Island, and it's not as densely populated with buildings as there are people coming and going everywhere. After all, this is a feudal country isolated from the world, and the thinking of the people in Wano is not much different. Swain retained titles such as King Ming, because the people were not enlightened and could only rule according to the original method. The difference was the abolition of harsh criminal laws and labor. He walked for a while and came to the front of the temple. His eyes flickered, and he saw a peerless beauty sitting on the throne. The slender legs not only give her a tall figure, but also add a noble temperament. Her sleeping posture is always so elegant, showing a kind of leisurely elegance. It was as if a fairy in a painting had come to life. It's so beautiful that it stuns others. Swain deliberately walked on tiptoes, making crisp footsteps. Advertisement. Hancock slowly woke up, raised his head and looked over. Her eyes were a little blurry, but she felt that it was very similar to the figure she had been thinking about. She rubbed her eyes, it was really Swain. Finally looking forward to the return of her beloved, her eyes shone with anticipation and excitement. She used to stand quietly at the place where the two of them had been in the early morning when the morning sun was shining, and in the evening when the setting sun was setting, staring intently at the road in the distance, expecting that familiar figure to appear. When she saw Swain appear in her field of vision, her eyes lit up instantly, as if all the stars were gathered in her eyes. Her heart beat faster, and a shy but sweet smile bloomed on her face, which was the most beautiful look of love. Hancock gently adjusted the corners of her clothes. Even though she had checked them countless times, she still wanted to appear in front of him in the best possible way. When Swain approached, she stepped forward nervously and expectantly, each step appearing so light and powerful. Her hands trembled slightly, but she still maintained her gentleness and elegance. Her smile was even brighter, as if spring flowers were blooming in the sunshine, beautiful and moving. Their eyes met, as if time stood still at this moment. Hancock lowered his head shyly, with a faint blush on his face. Her heart was filled with joy and happiness, and she couldn't help but look into his deep eyes. At that moment, all the waiting became worth it. Long time no see, Swain smiled. Hancock was a little overwhelmed and clasped his hands. Then she hugged him, holding back countless words she wanted to blurt out. Finally, it turns into a sentence. I miss you so much. She buried her head in Swain's arms. Swain's heart trembled, and he suddenly felt that he had arrived too late. He gently stroked her back, and both of them were silently enjoying the tranquility of the years. For a long time, a cough in the main hall broke the tranquility. Hancock, what are you doing? Granny New asked. She originally wanted to remind Hancock not to forget to strengthen security, and that really took away most of the wine they brewed. But as soon as she arrived, she saw her hugging a man. Now, immediately, get out of my sight, Hancock said angrily. Swain also thought to himself, this Granny New is really disappointing. Granny New didn't know what Hancock was angry about, she just thought it was because of the last incident. Suddenly, she saw the man turn around. "For Emperor Swain," she exclaimed in shock. The expression on his face was as if he had seen a ghost. Why are you here? Hancock was a little unhappy when he saw Granny New yelling at his sweetheart so loudly. Take her down here and she is not allowed to enter the hall again. Hancock ordered the guards in front of the hall. The guards were helpless. Both of them were discerning. When they saw that their majesty was in a warm mood, they immediately retreated. One person carried Granny New down while carrying her. Siwei actually felt like he was in love at this time, and the person he was dating was a stunning beauty. How long can you stay here? Hancock asked softly. Swain was stunned for a moment and thought, about 3 days. He has his own things to do, and this is the limit of time he can leave. All right, I have wronged you. After my ideal is realized, I will come and marry you. Marry me, really? She asked like a child. His eyes were full of star-like expectations. Swain said with a serious expression, really? But it will probably take a long time, right? She continued to ask. I can wait. She saw that Swain was hesitant and quickly added, fearing that the other party would regret it. Swain felt like there was another heavy burden on his shoulders. He will not promise anything easily. Once he says it, he must do it. Facing Hancock's expectant eyes, he suddenly felt a little scared. He didn't dare to agree too absolutely. The road ahead is still very difficult, the 5 elders, I am, Marine, and the unseen ancient weapon. These are all obstacles. Once he makes a mistake, the last person he wants to let down is Hancock. The cold empress in the eyes of others is an innocent girl with some love brain in front of him. He shook his head, not thinking about these things. Suddenly, we should rest, Hancock said with blurred eyes. The pain of lovesickness can make people forget about tea and food. Only dry firewood and a strong fire can cook food that the lovesick people can eat. The next morning, feeling a dryness on their face, they quickly stepped back to check on their majesty. She was a little disappointed that she didn't even receive the most basic farewell. The hero is sad about the beauty. Just some fruit with some honey drizzled on top, and egg fried rice and juice. His body trembled and he let out a cry. Are you awake? Swain suddenly walked into the boudoir, holding some hot food in his hand. She felt as if she had eaten something sweet, and she quickly sat down and started eating. Thinking about it, Kakuzu unconsciously raised his mouth. The pillow person has left. But Hancock's eyes didn't seem to allow him to answer like this. Ensure that you will not be disturbed inappropriately. Swain smiled and said, why should I leave? There are still 2 days left. At this moment, I could only feel my index finger moving. Swain's mouth was a little dry, and he gently picked up Hancock. Get up and have breakfast, he said. I made it specially for you. You did all of this for me? Hancock asked with a wink. The two of them lay on the bed together, making constant creaking sounds. The two of them worked hard until midnight before falling asleep from exhaustion. This actually aroused Swain's desire even more, and he began to attack the foul area aggressively. It will no longer be like this, with a sense of luxury and hopelessness. The latter's pale wrists were hanging around his neck. Hancock was touched by Swain like this, and no matter how passionate his love mind was, he couldn't resist it. It was a perfectly normal meal, something that the aloof empress might not have even looked at. Swain was amused in his heart. He's really like a child. Swain scratched his head. This was originally bought outside. He couldn't help but start to wonder, maybe he could live like this every day in the future. Her face was red and hot and seemed to be bleeding. The female guards in the main hall glanced this way out of curiosity. At that time, it would be even more perfect to have another child. Hancock woke up slowly and subconsciously looked at his pillow. Swain stroked Hancock's skin, which could be broken by blows, as if it were made of water. You haven't left yet, she said in surprise. Chapter 188. Getting ready to go to Dantu Island. Advertisement. Brothers, the last chapter has been revised. Go back and read it again. It is 2 chapters combined into one. There are many words. 3 days passed quickly. Swain did not accept Hancock's farewell with much fanfare like last time. He simply left a letter and left in a hurry. Before leaving, he asked the guard for a phone bug. The guard had a condescending look in his eyes, so he got one for him without asking why. Swain didn't think much and left in a small boat. After leaving Nine Snakes Island far away, and feeling that this location should not be monitored, he called Luo. Luo. As soon as the person on the other side heard this voice, he responded, when will the boss come back? Swain heard some resentment in the other party's tone, and said a little embarrassedly, I'm afraid I won't go back for a while. What? Luo sounded a little excited. It seems that Swain is now the boss, and he has to be busy with daily affairs. Give me an accurate estimate of how long you will be out this time. Luo was helpless, but had no choice but to accept this fact. About 2 weeks. Okay, I will take care of the island's affairs. That will trouble you a lot. The boss is serious. This is what I should do. There is one more thing I want to say. Some of our soldiers tend to get lost when they go to sea. We are in urgent need of navigators. I am going to let Bebo join us. Swain didn't think much and replied, let all your previous companions come back so that they can help you handle your affairs. He knew that his other important generals were not qualified for this job. Norden is a good drinker. He visits various hotels every day and often drinks with drinkers. He almost never returns without getting drunk. Yi Xiao loves to gamble. Although he is relatively restrained, he always likes to take his men to the countryside to inspect the people's sentiments. It takes a lot of time to go back and forth every day. As for the last one, he spends his days sunbathing and drinking drinks on the beach. There is also a beautiful girl giving a massage on the side, and you can leisurely watch your soldiers training hard. Only Luo is relatively normal and has no special hobbies. His only hobby is to treat illnesses and save people in order to practice his medical skills. Yeah, Swain then hung up the phone. Luo was not the only one who was in the office at this time, there was also Norden who was eating melon seeds with his legs crossed. The captain is leaving to go wandering again. I went out to do some things. Luo explained. Sometimes he had to maintain Swain's image in their eyes. There is no majesty at all. Isn't that just going out for fun? Norden's soul asked. Luo was choked for a long time. Speaking of which, Swain seemed to go out for fun every time. Advertisement. Thinking about following such a captain, my face turned a little dark, it was so unreliable. So he didn't answer Norden's words and left here to contact Bebo. But this time, they really wronged Swain. This time he is going to Egghead Island in Vegapunk. The technology in the world of One Piece is very powerful. MADS, the strongest research group, has members such as Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge, Quinn, and Bajan Gorm. They all have their own research concepts and different directions. Artificial devil fruit, Caesar. In the underground world centered on Mingo, various weapons and artificial devil fruits are smuggled. Kaido purchases artificial fruits in large quantities to build his own artificial fruit army. Bloodline factor and combat uniform, Judge. Judge used the bloodline factor developed by Vegapunk to create his own kingdom, Germa 66. Not only that, Judge also used blood factors to transform his own children. Although Judge thought he was successful, he felt that his children had no emotions and gained great strength. However, Vegapunk, who also studies bloodline factors, can develop serifs that can sweep across Germa 66. Body modifier, Quinn. As one of the 3 disasters of the Beast Pirates, Quinn's own strength is still acceptable. However, when it comes to Quinn's scientific research capabilities, it's really hard to describe in one word. As a plague, Quinn's ability to develop viruses is pretty good. The only one left is the self-proclaimed scientist, Bajingam. When Bajan Gorm was young, she was indeed a member of MADS, and she also called herself a scientist when she was old. Whitebeard too is most likely a clone of Whitebeard, but without the help of Vegapunk, Bajan Gorm failed. This is what Bajan Gorm later told Whitebeard too, that his father was Whitebeard, the strongest man in the world. But if you think about it, you will know that if he is really Whitebeard's son, then why did Marco and other remnants not support him after Whitebeard died in the battle? Just a failed copy. The scientists in MADS are all very strong, but when compared with Vegapunk, there is a big difference. When they were young, they were competing for the throne of the world's second scientist. It can be seen that they also knew the gap between them and Vegapunk. So, this group of people broke up unhappy. Swain now has money, people, things, and raw materials. The only thing he lacks is a scientist like Vegapunk, although his Jody is also a scientist. But there is a gap after all. Vegapunk is known as a century-old genius, leading the world in technology for 500 years. Moreover, he is a user with the brain fruit ability, and the knowledge he has learned and accumulated can surround an island. Swain must find something about him, about the abandoned ancient giant robot on Egghead Island. What secret does it hide? Why Joey Boy was defeated back then, and what kind of power Yim had, these were all things he wanted to know as soon as possible. What's more, he can also develop terrifying weapons like Seraph based on his bloodline factors. Then what if he provides Vegapunk with his own blood factor, as well as the factors of his remaining 4 generals, or the blood factor of the Red Count? That will create an even more terrifying power. So he will definitely go this time. There are many dangers at sea, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't know how to navigate. What he needs now is a map to Egghead Island. In that case, Swain said without hesitation, let's go to the Revolutionary Army headquarters first. The dragon should know that if he could meet a big bear, he might be able to teleport there directly. Chapter 189 Agent. Advertisement. The Land of White Earth, Valdigo. Revolutionary Army Headquarters. This is the most terrifying place described by the world government, and it is also an organization that does not allow anyone to join or join. Then the more they banned and suppressed them, the more their strength grew. There are 4 or 5 people in special clothes patrolling the edge of the island. The tide is a bit rough today, said a bearded man. He is the captain of the patrol here, and he has never seen the tide rise as high as today, which feels a bit strange. Yeah, it feels like these tides are coming specifically towards us. Someone answered. Ha ha ha, I think you are really overthinking. Is it possible that someone will control the ebb and flow of the sea water? A younger man among the 5 people said loudly. His voice is thick and powerful, which can leave a good impression on people. The bearded captain looked at the horizon and said, I hope I can see my child safely in a week. Don't worry, Captain, the dangers we encounter here are very small, and the survival rate is the highest. The archipelago of Valdigo is at the junction of the Aloof Zone and the New World. Strictly speaking, it is located at the westernmost edge of New World. Strangers usually come here. Some were lost merchant ships, and they hid themselves and disguised this place as an uninhabited island. Then, pretending to be unintentional, he scattered the map to them. Certainly, there are also agents coming here often. In particular, world government has the largest number of agents and is also the most difficult one to deal with. Often they have to risk their lives to kill them. Those who patrol the fringe islands have the highest willpower and loyalty. For them, it is a glorious thing to shed blood and sacrifice for the revolution. This is to liberate the whole world. Where are we going to see? Boom. A gunshot rang out. I saw the youngest man falling to the ground without saying a word. Barrett, shouted the bearded captain. Alert. The 5 people immediately started looking for cover. They can't even see where the enemy is now. There are many hills on this island, and there are raised rocks in many places. Boom. Another shot. The bearded captain rolled away quickly. He felt a chill down his spine just now. This was his 6th sense telling him that he was in danger, so he reacted quickly. Really, a bullet hole appeared where he had been. Captain, Barrett is dead. Then ignore him for now. Protecting yourself and surviving is your first mission. The long-bearded captain ordered. Good. As soon as the man responded, he was shot down and hit in the leg. Longbeard had been paying attention to the nearby fire and immediately found the place where the gun was fired. These are specially trained agents. They are at your 3 o'clock direction, covering me. I'll kill him. Several people obeyed the captain's order and quickly raised their guns to shoot in the 3 o'clock direction in a regular manner. The captain is extremely fast and moves like a rabbit. He immediately came to the edge of a trench, pulled out the dagger on his leg, and pointed at the agent who was looking at the sniper rifle. Go to hell, the captain yelled and stabbed hard. But what he didn't expect was that he was not the only agent. There are 3 people in total. One of them was extremely fast and immediately rushed to his companion and grabbed the bearded captain's dagger. The captain looked at the hand holding his dagger in horror. Advertisement. He is actually a capable person. He was about to dodge, but the person came very quickly, and the beast's palm directly grabbed his chest. A piece of skin was immediately torn off, and blood immediately began to pour out. Damn it. Run quickly. There is a person with abilities here. Let the branch seal this place quickly. The branch here is headed by Crow, one of the 4 major cadres of the Revolutionary Army. Want to escape? The agent said disdainfully. I am a person with abilities who ate the cat fruit. Now there are a bunch of whimsical mice running under my nose. I saw that the agent changed into an animal form and turned out to be a big cat. His face was full of ferocious aura, and his eyes revealed ferociousness. The captain opened his mouth to remind his teammates, but it was still a step too late. The big cat, as tall as a person, bit the man's neck with his sharp teeth. Amiwo. The bearded captain could even clearly hear the sound of a meat's neck being bitten off. This was his good comrade for 7 years, but he didn't expect his life to be taken away so easily. Anger ignited in the bearded captain's mind, and blood-red threads began to bulge in his eyeballs. Furious, he wanted to kill the big cat in front of him. Lift the gun and shoot. But the opponent could predict the trajectory of the bullet and easily dodge it. It's not of the same magnitude at all. The person with the ability of the cat fruit turns into a half-animal form again, licking his lips with his long tongue. Hey, it's so fun. Kill him quickly. We need to get a ship from the Revolutionary Army as soon as possible. It will be a great achievement to go back and tell the clan leader the location here. Urged another one of the 3 agents. These people have obviously been lurking here for a long time. I know how to do it. I don't need you to teach me how to do it. When the long-bearded captain faced such a powerful enemy, the feeling of powerlessness in his heart spread like a thick fog, making peoples will seem to be tightly bound by invisible forces, unable to move. The enemy in front of her was like a towering mountain, standing erect. No matter how hard she tried to climb, she could not reach the top. He found that his attack was as insignificant as a cricket shaking a tree. His eyes gradually dimmed, and a chill of despair surged in his heart. He felt like he was trapped in an endless abyss, and no matter how hard he struggled, it was in vain. Memories of his children and wife began in his mind. I'll bite out your spine. The half-animal cat laughed evilly. Torturing people can bring him endless pleasure. Just like a cat chasing a mouse, it always likes to play with its prey before biting it to death. As if the bearded captain was certain to die, he even closed his eyes. But after a while, he became confused. Why don't you feel pain? Could it be that he died too quickly? When he opened his eyes, he found that there was no blood and looked forward. The big cat, along with the other 2 agents, were dragged into the air and swayed in the wind by several blue chains. This is, he said in surprise. A young man with a handsome appearance and a beautiful tree in the wind gradually came from the distance. The bearded captain only felt that he looked familiar, as if he had met him once before somewhere. Where did you come from? You be *********D, you dare to destroy. Before the big cat agent finished speaking, his mouth opened inexplicably. Because he saw the appearance of the person coming. One of the emperors of the New World. Swain. Why does he appear here? Is it possible? He thought of what he had heard from the team leader before, that Swain wanted to overthrow Mary Joa. And appearing here at this time doesn't mean that Swain has united with the Revolutionary Army. Swain frowned when he heard this. Noisy. A chill suddenly spread along with the iron chain, freezing the three people into ice sculptures. Swain gently flicked out a few waves with his fingers, and the people who were frozen into ice sculptures suddenly turned into scum. Chapter 189. Brother Barudi. Advertisement. Thank you for saving my life. The bearded captain wanted to kneel on the ground to thank him. Swain quickly supported him with his hands. Don't be so polite, this is just a little effort from me. Swain said. The captain held his hand and said, I haven't asked you your name yet. My name is Swain. Okay. Ah. The captain reacted immediately when he heard the name. Are you the Four Emperors pirate? Swain chuckled and said, I'm just an ordinary person, so there's no need to make such a fuss. The captain didn't want to listen to Swain's joke. Two of his best comrades died. What are you doing here? The captain asked curiously. In fact, it is quite presumptuous to ask this question, and the identities are not equal at all. The other two people put the bodies of their companions together, sat cross-legged on the ground to pray, and then found wooden sticks to make stretchers. Swain read this in silence without saying anything. After all, the dead are the most important. But Swain still answered him without any big airs. I'm here to see Bartholomew Bear. Although the captain said he had no fear on the surface, he was actually very frightened in his heart. Under the propaganda of the world government, Swain has become as terrifying as a revolutionary dragon. Ordinary meals consist of eating human flesh and drinking human blood. He knew that if Swain killed him, there would be no possibility of escape. There is a dagger hidden in his sleeve. If he really kills himself, the reason why he is calm now is because of his fear of death. Oh, so I'm looking for Captain Big Bear. The captain thought for a moment and said, he's not here. Swain was dissatisfied. The man in front of him was really ignorant and dared to deceive him. The bearded man's eyes were erratic, and the small movements on his face deceived him. It is not as good as Blackbeard who can deceive people, his face does not blush and his heart does not beat. Even if the facts are in front of him, he can justifiably refuse to admit them. I have something to do with him. I have some friendship with your leader, Long. When Beard heard the name Long, his expression changed a little. He hesitated. I don't know whether Sway is an enemy or a friend because of this. Even if you don't tell me, there will definitely be other people patrolling if I keep walking to the front. Swain sneered. He would not kill someone for no reason, not to mention what this person did was not wrong. If the person coming was a very dangerous being, then if he introduced it, it would be like inviting a wolf into the house. This bearded man is so brave and resourceful, no wonder he was sent to the most dangerous place. Swain thought in his heart. But the long beard deceived him, which made him very dissatisfied. After all, he was his savior. If you really want to attack the Revolutionary Army, it is impossible to attack alone. Let me lead the way for you. Another person said. He didn't put as much thought into growing a beard. Seeing that Swain had a kind face and that he had saved his benefactor, he enthusiastically wanted to guide him. Swain snorted coldly and followed the man. The long beard opened his mouth in surprise and had no choice but to follow. Barudigo is an archipelago. The island area is extremely large. Most of the islands are deserted and only the landforms are rolling. These landforms are very conducive to hiding the Revolutionary Army and are suitable for conducting guerrilla warfare to contain the enemy. The terrain here is also very complicated, and we had to go back and forth several times before we finally reached the right path. It's about 45 miles from here to the front. The leader explained. I know, Swain responded. Then, he moved extremely fast and strode forward. Advertisement. Wait a minute, our level certification is needed there. Before he finished speaking, Swain had already walked away. The few who stayed there looked at each other, wondering what they should do now. Swain drove for nearly 20 minutes before he saw several small bunker-like buildings ahead. There were several crows circling in the sky. Swain slowly stopped. This should be the base camp of the Revolutionary Army. Swain asked doubtfully, isn't this a little too chilling? No wonder Vegapunk chose to join the world government back then and made it clear that the Revolutionary Army could not give him the resources he wanted. But what Swain didn't expect was that after decades, the Revolutionary Army headquarters only had these few large bunkers. At least you have a good-looking facade, and it's hard for you to discourage the comrades who join later. He walked up, but was immediately stopped by the guard. Please show your number, checkpoint pass. Swain doesn't have these things, he just thinks that there are quite a lot of rules in places with bigger beans. I don't. Then tell me your number. No, you, someone come and take him down quickly. The guard glanced at Swain and saw that he did not have any comrades from their Revolutionary Army, and immediately shouted. Soon some soldiers with guns, whose clothes were somewhat shabby but looked very neat, poured out of the bunker. They all pointed their dark guns at Swain. Who are you? Are you a spy of the world government? The guard leader asked. There were so many people standing there that Swain couldn't tell the difference. He has a tall head, half of Goswain's body, and he feels quite oppressive when standing in front of people. Let your heads come out, Swain said in annoyance. Being targeted like this over and over again will amplify the dissatisfaction of even the best-tempered person. What's more, his temper has always been that I won't offend others unless they offend me. If someone offends me, I will punish them. Faced with such a provocation, he did not kill directly, which was a great honor to Long and Da Shang. Just as he was about to take action, a hoarse voice suddenly shouted, "What happened?" A tall, bald man with a stern expression, extremely white skin, and wearing a beak-shaped mask embedded with metal. He wears a lavender tie around his neck, a black feather coat on his upper body, and dark black trousers on his lower body. Boss, this person's origin is unknown. I suspect he is a spy. Spy. Some of his eyes are congenitally blurry, so he usually uses the coal fruit to transform into crows to make his eyes. He walked a few steps forward and squinted his eyes to take a closer look. When he saw it, he suddenly broke into a cold sweat. It's you. As one of the key members of the Revolutionary Army, he naturally knew that Swain had helped Da Shang treat his daughter Bonnie's terminal illness. Big Bear usually doesn't like to talk, but since Bonnie recovered from his illness, he loves to talk. Swain told Long the truth about helping Bonnie with his treatment. And for Emperor Swain was also listed as a target that they must win over. The only people who knew about this matter were a few of them, so even if these people had seen Swain on the wanted notice, they would regard him as a subconscious enemy. What's more, the picture drawn on Swain's wanted poster shows him with blue hair and bare feet after awakening. Even fewer people knew him. Chapter 191. Got the map, ready to go to Dantu Island. Advertisement. Swain breathed a sigh of relief, finally someone knew him. Surrounded by these revolutionary troops are eager to catch spies and make great achievements. He was really afraid that he would accidentally kill one or two when he took action later, although even if Long knew about it, he could only apologize to Swain. I'm looking for bears and dragons, Swain said slowly. Before Crow could say anything, the guards beside him scolded him. Who are you? If you want to see our leader, you want to see him. Shut up. Crow's face changed drastically when he heard this. Did you hear that? I told you to shut up. You dog spy. He then stepped forward to subdue Swain. But before he had even taken 2 steps, he suddenly felt his feet light up and he was lifted up. He looked back blankly, and saw that the crow's big slap had already slapped him. Damn it, why don't you apologize to this gentleman quickly? Sir. Then he realized something was wrong. It turned out that he was told to shut up just now, but when the crow said the next sentence, he turned pale with fright. He is our ally, Lord Swain of the 4 Emperors. 4 Emperors. Everyone screamed in surprise and stepped back. Swain said expressionlessly, I am not your ally. He felt that the scope must be drawn clearly. If I am still had concerns about Swain taking action, then if the buff of the Revolutionary Army was added to it, then he would definitely become the target of public criticism. The one who bore the brunt was no longer the dragon, but Swain. So he could still carry the weight of this sentence. Crow smiled and invited Swain to the bunker. I will take you to the headquarters later. The leader will be there like a bear. Oh, how many strongholds do you have here? Swain was not surprised to hear that this was not his headquarters. It was indeed too shabby a place to become a base. What made him curious was how many strongholds there were here. Crow did not answer Swain, but instead avoided the question and said, the leader will definitely be very happy to see you. He has wanted to meet with you for a long time, but unfortunately he has never had the chance. Swain knew that this question was a bit presumptuous. How could you tell an outsider the secrets of other people's families? He casually replied, really? I have also wanted to meet the dragon for a long time. Let's go after dinner. I also have a bottle of expensive red wine here. Swain shook his head and refused. No, let's set off now. Crow had no choice but to obey the other party, and he was strong enough to speak confidently. And what should he do to refuse others? He has to prepare for doing something big in this small life, so there is no need to die on a meaningless thing. After a while, the two set off. About an hour later, Swain and Crow came to a group of buildings. Of course, the Crow didn't need any pass and was let out immediately. As soon as Kurla saw the Crow, she smiled and greeted her loudly. Brother Crow, why are you here? The smile on her face was very sweet, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity and agility. The laughter was clear and sweet, reverberating in the air like silver bells. Crow usually has a cold look, but only when he sees Kella, his eyes will show a little tenderness. He treats Kurla like a daughter. Swain couldn't help but look sideways at the orange-haired girl. Claire also noticed Swain, but did not recognize him as the 4 Emperors. The picture of the reward order is different, so it is not normal to recognize it. As for why the Crow can recognize it, his usual mission outside is similar to that of a scout, gathering information. Advertisement. Hello, little brother. She waved. When Swain saw her greeting him, he felt a little unbelievable and said, I'm a little brother. She tilted her head and asked with wide eyes, isn't it you? Ha ha ha, you are so cute. Kara found it interesting when she saw Swainian's shocked expression. Crow quickly gave Kella a wink, signaling him to stop talking. The other party immediately understood what it meant, so he pursed his lips. Has the leader gone out today? No, he was discussing something with Sabo. It is masked as much as possible to its address. It doesn't matter if he doesn't come. I'm here to find the map of Egghead Island from you. Ahahaha. Long, have you seen it? According to the news received from the front line, many people are supporting us. Sabo came over at this time, and Swain saw the last of the three brothers, and smiled kindly and nodded. Is this really the four emperors who do all kinds of evil? The bear is out on a mission today. What a pity. He would be very happy to see you. Because Dantu Island is the research site of Vegapunk, it is also the investment site of world government for many years. Yes. Where's the big bear? Swain asked. Swain accepted it calmly in his heart, but still said modestly, it's too much praise, I'm just lucky. He said with some surprise in his tone. Swain. A guest is looking for you. First meeting. The latter nodded and led Swain to Long's office. There is a red square tattoo on the left side of Long's face. He has short black hair combed back, a ferocious expression, no eyebrows, and stubble on his chin. It's true that a hero comes out of a boy. Long praised. The crow knocked on the door, and a deep and powerful voice came from inside. Come in. The dragon was watching him, so why wasn't Swain too? It's right over here. Long's office is very large, and even with more than a dozen people working here, it doesn't feel crowded. What are you talking about? Ivankov covered Kurla's mouth. What's matter? Swain hummed softly and said to Crow, take me to see the dragon. Kara and Ivankov heard the conversation between them and said, oh, at the same time. I want to thank you for the last big bear incident. Long smiled. Although the two met for the first time, they seemed like old friends for many years. That's right, we are friends. Long smiled. Kella glanced at Crow and saw him nodding before replying. He went out today and has a mission to perform. Yes. Long didn't say much. When Swain heard this voice, he knew it was Ivankov. Thank you. Always neat and tidy, he asked Sabo to bring out a map. Guest. He then raised his head and looked towards the crow. You're welcome, it's just a little effort from me. As soon as I arrived at the door, I heard a harsh laugh. Chapter 192 Dantu Island. Advertisement. 2 chapters combined into one. I went to bed after finishing writing. Swain did not refuse this time. Since Long said he was a friend, he was a friend. It's just that the two of them knew each other tacitly. They were just personal friends and could not rise between the two forces. Would you like to have a meal together before leaving? Long actively invited. Kurla was a little surprised and covered her mouth. Long Wei would invite others to stay for a meal. This was generally a treatment only reserved for the backbone level of the Revolutionary Army. Swain said slowly. I'm on a different road to Dantu Island, so I'm a little tight on time. There will be enough time, and we won't know until we talk about whether it's on the same road or not. Long looked calm, with a faint smile. Swain thought for a moment and said, that's fine. So the two were supported by a crowd and left. Kurla still doesn't understand that there are 10 people she can stand up to at work. However, when it comes to political matters, everything is in a mess. She quickly pulled Sabo, who was about to leave, and asked, hey. Wait a minute. Sabo saw that it was Kurla, who had a helpless face, and said, what are you doing? She usually likes to stay with Sob when she has nothing to do, and sometimes she gets angry at the straight Sob. Kurla pursed her lips and said angrily, what's your attitude? Sabo was already used to being angry with her and said, speak quickly, there is still something to do. That's what Brother Long and the 4 emperors were talking about just now. Brother Long usually doesn't leave others to eat, she said matter-of-factly. The expression on his face is quite exaggerated. Oh, you mentioned this, Sabo explained, they should have something to talk about. Seeing that the two of them had gone far away, he whispered. Swain actually rejected the leader. He said that there is a different road to Egghead Island. In fact, he was implying that he did not want to have too much to do with the leader. Kara suddenly understood after hearing this, and then said angrily, then why did Brother Long invite him? Swain is so rude. After saying that, he stuck out his tongue at Swain's back and made a face. Haha, who knows, maybe Brother Long wants to ask him for something. Sabo looked very optimistic. He still hasn't told Kurla that since Long can invite Swain, there must be some cooperation. These collaborations must be about weapons and war. The several places under Swain's jurisdiction, Wano Country, Golden City and Beehive Island, are the largest weapons production places in the world. Especially Wano's sea stone technology, which is beyond the reach of marine and world government. Even during Kaido's reign, they continued to send spies to steal these technologies. These islands were not very big originally, but Swain used his fruit ability to move some uninhabited islands to the periphery of these 3 islands. Specifically used to produce weapons. He pinched Kurla's little face lovingly, and then followed the pace of the dragon. The food was served quickly, along with a pot of fragrant wine. Although Swain didn't understand wine, Norden loved to drink it. From time to time, he would bring a bottle of wine to clink glasses with him. Although his drinking capacity is very poor, he can distinguish between good wine and bad wine. Only Long and Swain were present. The dragon doesn't care about the vegetables, and the drunkard doesn't care about the wine. Swain didn't like to talk in roundabout ways, so he asked straight to the point. What kind of support do you want me to give you? Money. Or weapons? Long was startled when he heard this. He didn't expect it to be so direct, but his expression remained calm and deep. He took a sip of wine and said, I need them all. Our revolutionary army has developed so far that we are now very short of weapons, especially weapons for those with abilities from the other side. Our soldiers are fearless in death, and I cannot bear to see them die innocently. After listening to this, Swain frowned imperceptibly. What does your soldier have to do with me? I am not a revolutionary army. He knew that Long was committing misfortune, and he knew that the pirates, the revolutionary army, and the world government were all independent and hostile to each other. Swain had no good impression of the revolutionary army at all. Because they are likely to become opponents in the future. So far, they can still get along well with each other while the world government is still there. I'm sorry, I can't provide you with any great resources. Swain refused. Long was not surprised, it seemed to be expected. Maybe we can give you what you want. Swain is interested in coming back, but there aren't many things he wants. For example, I am. Long said calmly. Swain's expression changed, and then immediately returned to normal. During the negotiation, the other party could grasp the changes in his expression. I also know some information. You may be more interested in my information. Long said confidently. Okay. Swain hesitated for a moment and then gave the answer. He needs IM's information very much, and the most important thing is that he just takes money and weapons, and he can't get out these vital information. You can't find any relevant information at all about this level of existence. You may be able to find it in the 800 years of blank history. He has a historical text, which he inherited from Kaido, and he can't understand it. The only people who can understand this are scholars like O'Hara, but they were exterminated by the world government. Now only Robin can understand this. Therefore, if the dragon can provide him with information about IM, it will be of infinite value. Swain then said, I can provide you with whatever you need. I also have a condition, I don't know if you can agree to it. But it doesn't matter. Perhaps we all have the same philosophy. When we come back to overthrow Mary Jo, I hope that your revolutionary army will not be like last time. Long looked serious at this time and said, no. If it weren't for the camp, we could become very good friends. The last time Swain attacked Mariajoya, he invited the revolutionary army to participate in the implementation. But the other party promised, but did not use any soldiers. It was then that Swain knew that pirates and revolutionary soldiers were two different people after all. Maybe. Swain replied calmly. Swain was a poor drinker and left after only 3 rounds. Embark on the journey to Dantu Island. Fishman Island. This has always been Whitebeard's territory, but since the war at the top, Whitebeard's body has taken a sharp turn. When Ace and Marco went to hunt down Blackbeard before they came back, Whitebeard suddenly suffered from internal injuries that he had suffered for many years. After vomiting out a mouthful of black blood, Whitebeard remained unconscious. Foil Beasta and Diamond Josie came to the unconscious Whitebeard. After discussion, they decided to go to Fishman Island to find Shiarly to help predict how to save Whitebeard. Let people take a coated boat and come to the island. The guards were originally ready to question him, but after seeing Whitebeard's flag, they immediately drove away the ships in front to make way for a passage. Passing the road to Fishman Island, there are countless pirate ships heading to New World. Some people naturally complained when they saw someone jumping in line with such a big show, but when they saw the flag of Whitebeard, they immediately shut up. You don't have to know what 4 emperors are, you have definitely heard of the name Whitebeard. The man who has ruled this sea for decades since Roger. Advertisement. After a while, the eldest prince came out to greet him. Welcome both of you here. Wahian was obviously a little worried about Whitebeard's injury, so he hurriedly asked, where is your prophet from Fishman Island? Seeing his anxious expression, the eldest prince was a little curious in his heart that Beasta, who was usually a very calm and steady person, looked different today. He answered truthfully, Shiarly. He is at the Fishman Cafe in the south. You can bring her here. Wahian immediately said, then please ask the eldest prince to summon her. The eldest prince nodded, and then ordered his entourage to invite Shiarly over. Are you looking for her to prophesy? Yes. She hasn't stopped predicting the job lately. Chao Zi was quite domineering and snorted. She must make a prediction today. The eldest prince guessed that something must have happened, and he was a little surprised. Could it be Whitebeard? Seeing his erratic eyes, Wahian warned, if you were protected by Dad, you would probably have been divided up, and even your clansmen would not be preserved. The eldest prince was trembling with fear and vowed, we will not betray our father. That would be the best. People's hearts are the hardest to predict. Who knows if they will stab you behind your back? As Whitebeard's backbone son, he naturally has to think about this big family. If the eldest prince had hesitated just now, he would have taken action without mercy. Fishman Island is a hot place. Not only Whitebeard is fighting for it, but also another 4 emperors' mother. When Kaido was still there, he was also fighting for it. The world government also extended an olive branch to them as a member country. So, the more critical this moment is, the more cold-blooded it is, and hesitation will lead to defeat. Soon, Shiarly came to the palace. She looked at the few people in confusion, wondering what happened after being brought here. Wahian said, please ask the eldest prince to clear the place. Irrelevant personnel leave, the eldest prince shouted in a loud voice. The guards and maids retreated one after another. You have to leave too. Chao Zi said. The eldest prince had no choice but to obey and leave. Do you know our dad, also known as Whitebeard? Shiarly nodded to show that she knew. He is now seriously ill and unconscious. Help us predict where to find someone who can treat him. Ah, Shiarli exclaimed. Whitebeard is unconscious. This is important news. If it is revealed to other forces that covet Whitebeard's territory, it won't be long before their troops come to the city. The foil made a silent gesture, and Shiarli immediately recovered from the shock. Give me a moment. She took out a crystal ball and several cards with complex patterns from the pocket on her waist. About an hour passed. Xiao Zi was obviously a little impatient after waiting, and when he was about to step forward to ask her, Shiarli opened her eyes. There was a thin layer of sweat on his forehead, and he gasped, I saw the future. What is it? On this island full of technology, there is an old man with a strange appearance and a young man beside him. They are standing on a huge robot. Wahian and Xiao Zi looked at each other, neither understanding what it meant. You guys wait a minute. She took out a pen and paper, and actually began to present the predicted scene on the paper. Xiao Zi and Wajian came up to take a look. Does this look like Swain? Josie asked. It's him. Who is that little old man next to him? The first prophecy was about the scene just told to them, and the second time was directly about whether Whitebeard could survive. Dragon sucks water. Swain looked at it and knew that it was a research product of Vegapunk, a sea beast weapon used to resist invaders. Suddenly, the water column grew taller and thicker, eventually forming a giant water column connecting heaven and earth. The water flow is churning in the air, like thousands of troops galloping past, and like countless silver ribbons dancing wildly in the air. I saw a huge wave being rolled up and slowly rotating and rising. 3 days later. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot. Dad mentioned this person many times when he was drinking with Roger. Shiarli replied. I can only predict so much. This old man can save Daddy Whitebeard. He clapped his hands down. Swain appeared in the outer circle of Egghead Island. We don't even know where they are. Xiao Zi said a little frustrated. Xiao Zi also followed his gaze and suddenly knew who the person Wahian was talking about was. We don't know yet, but it's important to save Dad. Don't worry, I think there is someone who should know where Vegapunk is. Wahian looked in one direction and said. But he can survive until now, but her prediction will not be wrong. Swish 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 swish. In fact, there was one thing she hadn't said yet. The reason why she could predict it for so long was actually because she predicted it twice. The sea here is very calm, a bit like a windless zone. In the center of the vortex, the water column began to rise slowly. At first it seemed to touch the sky tentatively, and then it seemed to have broken away from the shackles of gravity, climbing upwards in an unstoppable manner. The old man in this picture looks a bit like a human being, do you still remember? Shiarli responded. I don't hope something happens to my dad. He will definitely recover. Under Swain's control, the water almost reached the clouds, and the scene was quite spectacular. Could it be that my prediction was really wrong? Wahian and Chaozi did not return, but they asked for a navigator from Fishman Island. Foil nodded in agreement. What makes her a little strange is that Whitebeard's vital signs should have died as early as a year ago in the top war. Then why does Swain appear here? Chaozi also reacted at this time and exclaimed, he is Vegapunk. Thank you. The two said gratefully. Okay, we get it. I saw a few stiff moving Poseidons in the water column. Scientists employed by the world government. Chapter 193 Seraph. Advertisement. Report. An unknown enemy broke into the sea. In the upper laboratory of Egghead Island, a piercing alarm sounded. The alarms in the room began to flash red lights, indicating a high degree of danger. Vegapunk's eyes were bleary-eyed and he was lying on the chair drowsily. This alarm shocked him so much that he lost sleep immediately. What's going on? Shakia, he asked, is there another Poseidon group attack? Please don't worry, main body. A stranger broke into the island and destroyed all the sea beast weapons on the periphery of the sea area. I will call the surveillance first to take a look. Shakia replied. Shakia was very fast and found it out in a short time. Ontology, there is bad news. Vegapunk was shocked. If the calm Shakia could tell bad news, it would be extremely bad. Say it. Vegapunk had already begun to calculate the fastest escape plan. According to the surveillance display, the enemy is a 4 emperors. Upon hearing this, Vegapunk exclaimed, 4 emperors. I have nothing to do with the 4 emperors. Of course Shakia didn't know either. He said, it's Swain. Swain. Vegapunk recalled it in his mind. It was found that nothing happened to offend the now prosperous emperor of the sea. Did you come with a fleet? Currently found to be alone. Vegapunk's expression suddenly relaxed a lot, and he said, if you are alone. Maybe he broke into this place by mistake, and the sea beast weapons judged him as an enemy, so they launched an attack. This is a misunderstanding. That is, Vegapunk looked at the surveillance video with some surprise. The movement caused by Swain caused the sea level of the nearby island to drop by nearly 2 meters. Shakia suddenly asked, is this fruit power? Vegapunk nodded, then shook his head. Instead, he said meaningfully, if I can study this ability, it should be able to save my guess. Yes, there should be a chance. Shakia replied. There was a flash of light in his eyes. Let Seraph stop him for a moment. Shakia asked Vegapunk. They saw from the surveillance camera that Swain had flown towards the experimental floor, looking at the menacing approach. That's not very gentlemanly, Vegapunk said, knocking his head. Sakyamuni knew what he was thinking. Seraph could not use his authority when Vegapunk was around. Without his orders, he would not be able to give orders at all. Only by letting him know that we are not easy to mess with can we have the opportunity to sit down and negotiate. Vegapunk thought for a moment and said, that's right. The personalities he studied, like Sakyamuni, helped him to a certain extent with his character flaws. Vegapunk specifically mentioned one point. Order Seraph to never bear the wrath of Swain while protecting themselves. These are the results of his research for world government. If they are damaged at this time and cannot be delivered in time, he will be held responsible. I know. There are 6 Seraphs released this time, namely Hancock, Lao Sha, Hawkeye Mahawk, Doflamingo, Jinbei and Raglan. They all have brown skin, gray-white hair, and a pair of white wings growing on their backs, which look particularly conspicuous. The main body orders you to stop Swain. Shakia used brain waves to transmit to them all of Swain's information, which is also the most specific investigation information of the world government. Including his appearance, fruits, and degree of danger. Their eyes instantly regained clarity, and the wings behind their backs began to vibrate, heading towards Swain's location from different directions. Swish, swish, swish. Little Hawkeye swung out a few wind-breaking slashes, unexpectedly attacking from somewhere. Swain quickly stopped in midair and pointed out. Puffy. Swain took all the attacks. Little Hawkeye stood next to a tall tree and looked at Swain indifferently. Ha, Swain said happily. Advertisement. It is worthy of Vegapunk to develop such a simulated seraph. He became interested and wanted to test the strength of this seraph. He took one step forward, and with each step forward, there was a blue ray formation disk at his feet. He is like a god king of the sea, commanding the rivers and seas with strong winds. He first pressed down with conquerors, and the domineering black lightning poured out like a waterfall. Sizzle. Little Eagle Eye only felt very uncomfortable, as if there was a big mountain pressing on his head. Damn it, he shouted. He pulled out the sword from his back with difficulty and slashed upward against the endless pressure. Clang. Lightning clashed with metal. Swain flashed behind him and smiled. It's not the real you after all. One punch. Drive him directly into the ground. Boom. Lao Sha kicked Swain, but Swain blocked it with his hand. Not strong enough. He was like bullying a child, playing around with these people. But Hancock was the only one who didn't take action. But she looked at Swain with bright eyes, as if Vegapunk's order was of no use to her. I'm not here to fight. Why don't you buy me a cup of tea? Swain said. He was sure that Vegapunk could hear these words, and he had even been observing Swain's battle with Seraph. Ah, is it true? They still need some time to grow. Vegapunk said with emotion. Stop it. Seraph immediately stopped what he was about to do. A voice came from nowhere, saying, let them bring you in. Swain slowly fell from the sky. Little Eagle Eye made a gesture to him. He was no longer as aggressive as before, but rather very kind. Come with me. Swain was amazed in his heart and admired Vegapunk even more. This place is like a big maze. Swain is like a country bumpkin who just entered the city. He keeps looking around and feels very strange. After a while, he flew to the upper laboratory in the aircraft. Vegapunk looks like the Einstein of his previous life. He is short and has gray hair. Hello. Swain asked politely. Vegapunk didn't seem to expect that the other party would be so kind, and responded, hello. Shakia, who was in the dark, couldn't help but feel relieved when he saw this scene. He was trying his best to dissuade Vegapunk from meeting Swain just now. He was afraid that if there was a scam, he would not even have a chance to escape, and he would easily become a turtle in the urn. However, Vegapunk wanted to see Swain no matter what. He had a reason why he must see him. In the laboratory, Swain said straightforwardly, I'm here to invite you to join the pirate group. Vegapunk was stunned for a moment. Ahahaha. He started laughing, thinking Swain's question was so ridiculous. I'm Marine, and you're a pirate and there's no way we can get together. After saying that, he winked somewhere, and Sakyamuni in the background immediately understood and cut off all signal sources near the two of them. Swain didn't notice these little moves and said, I can support you more than the world government. It will also keep you safe. Vegapunk was not impressed and instead asked, what if I choose not to join? Swain suddenly smiled. If you don't join me, I'll leave immediately. But in order to make up for the loss of my special trip, I will move your automatic cooking and drinking machines. Ha 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 ha. You are so funny. Vegapunk continued to laugh. It seems that the man in front of me is not the four emperors at all. A little too casual. Chapter 194 Secret. Advertisement. I want to know what exactly I am trying to do. Swain asked. Why do you know him? The smile on Vegapunk's face solidified. Last time, I launched a large-scale attack on the Holy Land. More than once, I even sent people to attack their grain ships. Swain said in a shocking tone. Vegapunk was speechless after hearing this, but he didn't expect this person to be even crazier. He even dared to attack the Holy Land and survived. Why did you choose me? Vegapunk asked. I want to change the world and overthrow Im's rule. You are more trustworthy, Swain said sincerely. So their conversation was a bit hasty, but people with the same ideals will always walk on the same path. Vegapunk was silent, and after a moment he said, I only have some guesses. Swain was pleasantly surprised. Vegapunk must have known some secrets since he has worked for the world government for so many years. This starts with the Red Earth continent. This unique road is the geographical high point in the world of One Piece. If you do not consider the Sky Islands, the Red Earth continent is the highest point that most humans can reach. Assuming that sea levels really continue to rise in the future, even if the whole world is submerged, the Red Earth continent will be the last one. This may be the important reason why Yimu and the Tianlong people decided to live in the Red Earth continent. But Mariajoya still relies on supplies from the Nether Islands. Swain's action of sending the Red Earl to attack the transport ship alone caused a food crisis for the Celestial Dragons. Therefore, I am also considered the supply problem after the world was destroyed when he moved to the Holy Land. The construction of the bridge, a super project started 700 years ago, consumed countless manpower and material resources. It began to connect various islands in the East China Sea. This bridge is very tall and far away from the sea. It has even established a bridge country in its long history, and its most basic function is transportation. If I am really can use a tsunami to cleanse the world, the sea will become violent and no longer suitable for habitation. The only way to communicate between islands is through bridges, so these bridges are the last place of survival for those participating countries who are willing to continue to submit to the world government. And when they moved to the bridge, the country also gave up the free choice to become the flesh and blood of the celestial dragons, and then became like blood vessels. Providing nutrients for victory on the Red Earth continent, I am continued to rule the world in another way. As for the people, he probably never cares. After all, in the eyes of the five elders, humans are just bugs that will reproduce quickly. It doesn't matter how many people die if the world is destroyed. Since 800 years ago, the Red Earth continent has been preparing, because this world is very likely to sink to the bottom of the sea. So it is very possible that in the blank 100 years, this great destruction almost happened. And the threat never went away. Advertisement. That's why I am making preparations in advance. The huge kingdom once broke out at war with 20 countries. The cause and process of this are still a mystery, but some clues can be found from some of Joy Boy's partners at the time. For example, the Seven Waters capital where ancient weapon and Pluton were built is itself an island that is periodically hit by storms. In order to resist floods and tsunamis, the people of this city built a very strong drainage system. It was later rebuilt, and Tom even created a sea train like a genius to make the track float on the sea. Their disciple, Bingshan, inherited the master's will. And prepared to make the entire city of Seven Waters float and become an unsinkable island. Wano country wants to surround the entire island with a wall to prevent huge tsunamis, and it cannot leave a drainage outlet. Although the result was severe waterlogging, the initial purpose of the wall was supposed to be for defense and later became related to Pluton's liberation. Destroy the wall to let Pluton see the light of day again. This is an act of burning the boat, which means that when Pluton needs to be taken out, Wano will also lose its barrier. That was the moment when the Great War prophesied would come and the decisive battle would come. But Noah in One Piece has a different mission. It is the window of the oath that Joy Boy and the Mermaid Princess made 800 years ago. As a tool created to move aid to land, Joy Boy failed to fulfill his promise and left an apology note. It can be inferred from the above examples that there are more than one scene of people who are aware of the crisis of silence in the world. Back then, Joy Boy and his allies and countries also discovered the ancient weapon, which had the power to destroy the world. Poseidon can command the Poseidon class to destroy the island easily. Pluton can even destroy an island with one shot. If every island is destroyed, it will cause sea levels to rise, just like the kingdom of Lucia. Then it is no longer an empty talk that ancient weapon has the power to destroy the world. However, since they are called weapons, it is the person who uses the weapons who ultimately decides the outcome. What is certain is that Joey Boy did not intend to use the ancient weapon to destroy the world at that time. Instead, he carefully hid the ancient weapon. Although the whereabouts of the last ancient weapon Uranus are still unknown, it is certain that he also possesses the power to destroy the island. So if this crisis almost happened 800 years ago, what happened at that time? The weapon that destroyed Lucilia at that time was probably a very powerful mechanical fortress, something like the Death Star. Because Vegapunk is the leader of the marine science class and currently the #1 scientist in the world. Various powerful human weapons have been developed, but what Cove didn't know in the past was that Vegapunk actually respected ancient technology more. The entire future is just a reproduction of the ancient kingdom with highly developed civilization 900 years ago. If the weapon I am used was left over from ancient times, then it was most likely made by the ancient kingdom. Vegapunk was not the manufacturer of this machine, but it created the energy that can drive the machine. Chapter 195 The Truth of the World. Advertisement. I am and the five elders seem to have mentioned the Mother Fire, which is the important energy source that can make this weapon work again. Formally we can even understand it is nuclear power. Vegapunk's ultimate goal is to create an artificial sun. And a key reason why Mother Fire works is that it's also an ancient kingdom technology. Vegapunk created the Mother Fire using the technology he developed from that ancient robot. That ancient kingdom 900 years ago not only produced a powerful weapon that could destroy an island in an instant. At the same time, a powerful energy that can drive this weapon was also created. After the ancient kingdom was destroyed, the machine was controlled by IM and the five elders, but the energy technology was lost. Until Punk created the Mother Fire. The weapon finally regained its power and could be activated again. This was the reason for the destruction of Lucilia's kingdom in the original plot. After IM verified that the Mother Fire was indeed effective, he immediately sent the Old Star Marine General and other top combat forces to lead the war-level Marine fleet to the future island to harvest Vegapunk's invention. The fusion furnace needed to create the magic fire and the traitor who mastered the technology. If these Yorks are mastered by the 5 elders, they will be able to continuously create new fires. Then IM can continue to drive this weapon to destroy all islands that resist the rule. During this process, the sea level will continue to rise, and more islands will be submerged, until the sea level rises to a certain level. All islands will be submerged and the world will sink to the bottom of the sea, so after the Lucia incident, Vegapunk should have realized the problem immediately. So the question is, why did the ancient kingdom make this kind of military weapon? The ultimate outcome of a weapon depends on the person using it. The ancient kingdom may not have built this machine to destroy the island, but to destroy something else. There are any suggestions that cannot be drilled out no matter what, even the giants have to lament. There is something that Elbaf's gun cannot break through, because the world where it exists has become no longer free. Red Earth Continent. Because of the existence of the Red Earth Continent, the sea was divided into 2 halves. Coupled with the unnavigable windless zone, it was directly cut into a world of 4 seas. Sailing on the sea is the most important means of transportation. However, the existence of the Red Continent made crossing the sea very difficult. In order to go to the Grand Line's pressurized road again from North Blue, Nolindo had been waiting for Marijoa's permit for 5 years. To go to the New World from the first half of the Grand Line, you also need to cross the Red Continent and obtain Marijoa's permission. You have to calculate to the other side and buy a new boat, which is even more unacceptable to adventurers who regard boats as partners. So I came up with the idea of ship coding, such a cool operation adventure, diving into the bottom of the sea, passing through the Fishman Island and then going to the New World. Using the power of the ancient weapon Uranus and Poseidon, the Poseidons currently entrenched in the seamless zone will disperse, and the abnormal climate that will disperse the seamless zone will disappear. From now on, the Great Sea Route will no longer be independent from the 4 seas, and free navigation will be realized in all sea areas. The 4 seas have successfully gathered together and become one. That's part of the truth I know, Vegapunk said. Swain took a breath of air and calmed down his tense nerves. I see. Isn't I am also the king of this world now? Swain asked strangely. Vegapunk shook his head and said, from the moment Joey Boy resisted, he was no longer the king of this world. Since Roger, the era of great pirates has arrived, and more people are walking towards freedom. Advertisement. But the opposite of freedom is the Tianlong people. It should not be said that I am wants to enslave the whole world. Vegapunk said. Then you tell me so much because you want to take advantage of my ability. Swain said in an uncertain tone. Yes, your fruit ability is very special. Ever since I learned about your deeds, I have noticed your ability to control the ocean. Isn't it on my reward order? He flipped through it hurriedly, and finally found the relevant information on an extremely wrinkled page. It immediately changed into what it looked like after awakening. And precisely because of this butterfly effect, he was not destroyed. My ability is not enough to mobilize the water of the entire ocean. Can you let me see what you look like after you wake up? He quickly searched for Swain's information on the control panel, and soon 2 photos appeared on the screen. But one thing's for sure, it's scary. The kingdom of Lulusia was not instigated by the Revolutionary Army, and was still in dire straits. In the original plot, IM used this ability. He directly caused a kingdom to be destroyed instantly, and the sea level around the world rose by 1 meter. With a thought, Swain's temperament suddenly changed. What a power this is. He looked at the second photo and found that it was very different from his own self after awakening. That's because your abilities are not yet up to par. The ancient kingdoms that once perished, how powerful were they? I have always believed that devil fruit is a supernatural power formed by human beings relying on their spiritual power, and ocean fruit must be people in a certain period of time who were bound by the ocean and came up with the idea of controlling the ocean. I just took one look at it and was shocked in my heart. He inserted a small black hole, and a book immediately popped up in the system. Vegapunk took a closer look, his eyes filled with shock. Vegapunk shook his head and said, although I am involved, I don't know the power of that weapon. After awakening, he had a large blue tattoo on his chest, densely packed like a charm. So, what? You have reached the awakening state. Vegapunk looked very moved. However, these did not appear on the reward order, and the blue hair was also painted black. He pointed with trembling hands and tried to say something but did not say it. Oh, Swain said a little surprised, I can reach the awakening state with this fruit, can I still break through? Wait a minute, Vegapunk said. This is no longer known. It seems that someone deliberately painted it to look like an ordinary person, to confuse the public. Only then did Swain realize that due to his actions, the butterfly effect had already occurred. Swain also looked curiously to see what could make this great inventor so shocked. Swain's mind was constantly being washed by these new ideas, and the truth of the world seemed to be getting closer. Im's purpose is also obvious. Then what exactly are the weapons in his hands? Swain was more concerned about this point. And so this fruit was formed. Chapter 196 O'Hara's Suicide Note. Advertisement. The person in this illustration is exactly the same as me. Swain immediately asked, what book is this? Vegapunk paused for a moment before saying, this is O'Hara's legacy. O'Hara, didn't they disappear decades ago? Yes, this is one of the few remaining books. Their clan committed a heaven-defying crime and was ordered to be exterminated by the five elders. Are they involved in deciphering the historical text? Yes, the historical text records the truth of this world, which pokes straight into the spine of the celestial dragons. So, they must be destroyed by the celestial dragons, there is no doubt about it. Nicole Robin is one of the survivors and the last member of the O'Hara tribe. Although Soro also survived that disaster, he was not from O'Hara. The more Swain thought about it, the more frightened he became. He realized the importance of the historical text. In the past, he believed that as long as he had strong strength and partners, it would be easy to overthrow the world government. From beginning to end, Swain has indeed been heading in this direction. Until recently, he found that his strength seemed to have reached a bottleneck period and he could no longer be compatible upwards. This discovery made him a little worried. He could beat five elders by one person and not fall behind. But he was really unable to adapt to IM and the world-destroying weapon behind him. The first point is that if IM can make the five elders completely surrender, then his own strength is probably stronger than the combined strength of these five people, and he may even have to achieve dimensionality reduction. Otherwise, why wouldn't they surrender to Swain? He still doesn't know how to activate it. What is certain is that there must be records in history, and he can't read those words at all. If the only people in the world who can understand this kind of writing are the top genius in front of me, O'Hara's heir Robin, and the five elders in IM who have lived for hundreds of years. Since they want to destroy O'Hara, they can read these words. Another point is that he learned a legend from the mouth of an old man in Wano country that Wano country itself is a weapon. A magical weapon created by the ancient kingdom. Even if you ask Vegapunk, who is 500 years ahead of the world's technology, he would not dare to say that his technology can match or surpass ancient technology. The dazzling technology on Dantu Island is just a part of the ancient kingdom he recreated from ancient books. So why did such a powerful kingdom perish and disappear? Why did IM become the final winner? Why did Joey Boy fail miserably? All these questions were running through Swain's mind, causing his veins to bulge and feel a little distressed. He suddenly realized that his eyes were completely dark and he didn't know anything. The weak emotion lingered in his mind again, and his body suddenly felt like tens of thousands of ants biting him. The one in this illustrated book is Poseidon, the god of the sea. Vegapunk's voice brought him out of his thoughts. I know that. He once entered a fantasy world when he awakened, and learned the full name of this fruit from there. Ocean fruit phantom beast species Poseidon. With your current strength, can you move the entire ocean? Swain glanced at Vegapunk with a strange expression and saw that he was speaking seriously. Advertisement. He shook his head and said, not really. Vegapunk was a little disappointed, and Swain felt helpless when he saw his expression turned worried. If I could pry up the strength of the entire ocean, I wouldn't be able to overwhelm the Red Earth continent with just a few clicks and flood Yim directly. Why would I come to find you again? Then you haven't used this power to its extreme. Vegapunk vowed. He pointed to the text above and explained to Swain word for word. When the sea god Poseidon is angry, sea monsters will appear in the sea, and he can command all creatures in the sea. When he waved his trident, he could not only easily set off huge waves, cause storms and tsunamis to sink continents and crack the world, but he could also smash everything into pieces. Swain was shocked when he heard this and looked at his hands blankly. Is it possible that I really haven't used this fruit to its full potential? So, how can he go further? Unknown. I can help you develop this power. Vegapunk said. His eyes were full of desire. And then develop a weapon that can subvert this sea area. Faced with Swain's question, he replied calmly, this weapon does not belong to anyone, but to people all over the world. Swain didn't understand what he was talking about, but he would never hand over the blood factor. That would undoubtedly expose all of his weaknesses to others. Otherwise, why didn't five elders use the blood factor to make Vegapunk copy another self? There are definitely drawbacks to this. Another thing is that he does not accept more people who look exactly like him. He came to Egghead Island to invite Vegapunk and get Seraph and his technology. If you refuse to absolutely, will the latter feel disgusted with you? But it wouldn't be right to deceive the other party. After all, he is such an honest scientist. Who knew that Vegapunk's next words would solve all his worries? We can cooperate first. You need to protect me and this island. Swain was overjoyed and was about to agree. But I heard a beep 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 sound. This is the sound of the phone bug. He immediately realized that there was another person in this laboratory. Swain followed the sound very quickly. The man who overheard obviously realized that he had been exposed and quickly got up and ran away. But Swain was so fast, he arrived at the eavesdropper in the past 3 breaths. Who are you? Swain asked with narrowed eyes. His aura was aggressive, and he pinched the woman's neck with his hands and held her up in the air. Vegapunk trotted all the way to Swain, to see Swain grabbing an acquaintance. York, how did you come here without my order? York is one of the 6 paths clones that Vegapunk wants to research through technological means. Body, I broke in here accidentally, please let him go. I can't breathe, she said in a hoarse voice. Vegapunk did not let Swain let go of her immediately, but asked, what were you doing with the video phone bug just now? I just get used to carrying it with me and recording some things. Working needs. York tried his best to explain. Vegapunk brought up another matter. When agents come to the island, I often find some running away alone. Does this matter have anything to do with you? York was shocked and felt that he would not be able to continue making up the story. Chapter 197 The Traitor Dies. Advertisement. Original body, how could I know such a thing? She tried her best to act harmless. Stop talking, I'm going back to sleep. York, do you know the consequences of betrayal? Vegapunk said in a slightly cold voice. Even though he is a kind old man, he is not willing to accept betrayal. Swain's freezing power was as fast as lightning, freezing York's legs. What are you doing? She said angrily, staring at Swain with an evil expression. Who gave you the courage to look at me like this? Swain shouted. The sound was like thunder, exploding in York's ears. Immediately afterwards, he released the alluring conqueror's domineering energy, attacking York unbridled. The other person's baby fat face was so frightened that his muscles tightened. She looked very much like the sister next door who was bullied and cried with grievances. Vegapunk, there's an undercover agent in your team, do you want me to clear it out for you? Swain was saying that if Vegapunk couldn't bear it, he would not recommend killing York. Vegapunk sighed. She is still too young and her mind is not yet mature. HMPH. You are so immature, you are just too kind. If this matter can't be handled well, then let's just stop working together. Swain was clearly putting pressure on him, because he hated traitors who would spoil things at critical moments if they had any mercy. Moreover, York was completely incapable of explaining himself. The video phone bug was in Swain's hands, and it recorded all the conversations between Swain and Vegapunk. I just don't know if it has been transmitted. Then it's up to you to execute him. Vegapunk turned around and said. He couldn't bear the clone he had cultivated for many years to die in front of him like this. York recovered from the impact of conquerors at this time. After hearing Vegapunk's last words, he immediately shouted. Don't kill me, otherwise you will die too. I am now a celestial dragon. She was extremely proud when she said the 3 words Tianlongren. Dragon people. Swain clenched his fists and asked lightly. His murderous intention seemed to have turned into substance and turned into a sharp sword hanging in his heart. Does this rubbish identity really make you so proud? Do you think he can protect you for the rest of your life? Swain sneered. Vegapunk also shook his head and said, I thought your betrayal was just to accept the data of this island, but I didn't expect you to have a deal with those guys. Sooner or later, the Tianlong people will be pulled down from the altar. What good will this do to you? Hehehehe, I am really stupid. The celestial dragons are the most noble race in the world. I have made a deal with the 5 elders. As long as I find out the evidence that you betrayed the world government, they will make me a superior person. Celestial dragon. There was no sign of repentance on York's face. She believed that no avatar would refuse such a temptation. And why is she York? Because she has been destined to become a god since she was created. This is a great opportunity, an opportunity that only belongs to herself. So she won't let go. Swain's voice could no longer be heard as cold, and the way he looked at York was as if he were looking at a dead man. Have you sent the image to them? Seeing the change in Swain's tone, York thought he was afraid. Advertisement. He said even more wantonly. That's right, so do you know who you are being rude to? When Vegapunk heard that the video had been broadcast, his face changed and he ran around scratching his head. He kept saying, data, 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 you must take away my brain. These are the results of half his life's research. York saw Numenon's behavior and sneered. Numenon, you are really stupid, why not? Before she could finish speaking, her voice stopped abruptly. Looking down in shock, she saw a long light blue arrow piercing her heart. York's body began to smoke, and various electrical short-circuit sounds came from her body. You shouldn't have human greed, Swain said lightly. Throwing her body to the ground casually. The body. Repair. She looked at Vegapunk's anxious look and didn't even have time to look at her. Swain crushed her head with a kick. Vegapunk is amazing and can give these robots human emotions, but he doesn't control them to have their own thoughts. If you can write a program, you should write her an absolutely loyal command. Swain looked deeply at the sea outside the laboratory, thinking in his heart, I'm afraid the 5 elders have come with Buster Call. Because, this time Swain touched their most taboo place again. Holy land, Marie Joya. Saint Satan broke the precious coffee table in anger. Could this kid be the reincarnation of Joey Boy? He's always against us. Mo Sheng raised the teacup that was floating in the air. Although the coffee table was shattered to pieces, the teacup was still floating in the same position as before. Maybe, otherwise I really can't find a more annoying fly than him. Fly, I think he is about to become a lion. If the 5 of us don't join forces, who will be his opponent in a solo fight? Nasushiro Sheng said angrily. He had noticed Swain at the beginning, and when Swain was in the Sabayati Islands, he ordered Akainu to kill Swain. In the end, despite all calculations, Swain ran away. He now regrets that if he had gone off in person, there wouldn't have been so much trouble. What a headache for an opponent. What to do with Vegapunk? Killed. But where is Master I Am? The adults should have the same idea as us, kill him and take away the mother fire. Don't worry, I can recreate it as long as I have the data. Saint Satan assured. Only then did everyone remember that Saint Satan also had the identity of a scientist. Okay, Then I will order to recall the 3 generals and go to Dantu Island. A guard immediately took the order and said, if Marine Fleet Admiral wants to stop it, will you reject it? I will issue the highest authority order, Peter Saint said suddenly. But among these 5 people, the status is slightly higher, so it is natural for him to issue this order. Chapter 198 Buster Call. Advertisement. Toot toot toot. The phone in Zheng Guo's office rang, and it took him a long time to wake up from his sleep. Oh, my hearing seems to be bad recently. Nowadays, his head is full and he no longer has the majestic appearance he once had. The last time he resigned, 5 elders refused because there was no successor to the general. He thinks this is an outrageous reason. In the final analysis, it is a problem with the characters of Aokiji and Akainu. The Marine they grew up with is already a separate organization from the world government. Unlike the Warring States period, Marine was completely a subordinate unit of the world government, and at that time, it had to obey the orders of the 5 elders unconditionally. Aokiji and Akainu are different. Their characters are completely likely to refuse orders from the 5 elders, so Marine's power cannot be controlled by the 5 elders. This was completely impossible during the Warring States period. Therefore, his resignation was repeatedly rejected. In anger, he simply gave up his burden and spent every day fishing with Garp, walking the sheep, and eating donuts. The sky cannot be without a master for a day, and Marine cannot be without a coach for a day. The 5 elders also realized that Zheng Guo had made up his mind to leave, so they made an agreement with him and agreed to it in 2 years, so he had no choice but to accept it. Sengoku picked up the phone, and a lazy voice came from inside. Hello, is Sengoku Fleet Admiral here? It's you, Kuzan, he said in a gentle tone. He is quite optimistic about Aokiji because many of his concepts coincide with his own. The most important point is that he is kinder compared to Akainu who is unscrupulous. I received a transfer order from Marie Joya. Yeah. So, this is something. I don't know, the 5 elders directly gave orders over me. He said angrily. Sengoku realized that this matter might not be simple, so he asked, where are Akainu and Kizaru? Ah la la, they both seem to have accepted it, because I saw their returning warships. Then please pay attention to your safety. Zheng Guo threw away the phone angrily. This is the second time. 5 elders directly mobilized generals. Last time, there were 2 generals. This time, there are 3. He wants to go to Mariajoy now and ask the 5 elders if they still have this Marine Fleet Admiral in their eyes. Egghead Island. Swain looked at Vegapunk's busy state and wanted to help but couldn't. He couldn't understand these data at all. Red, orange, yellow and green, he didn't know what the colors corresponded to. Asking him to help can only be a disservice. Can't I just use the fruit's ability to move the island directly? Swain suggested. Vegapunk sighed and shook his head. Yes, the location authority on this island is in the hands of the 5 elders. No matter where we escape, they will know it. This is also the backup preparation of the 5 elders. They are extremely wary of non-dragon people. After decades of investment by the world government, the island has undergone tremendous changes. At the same time, Vegapunk's decades of research results remain on this island, and he cannot take them away with his power. Advertisement. Even if they have the ability to take them away, they still need to know where they are being taken. After all, the mother fire they need is what I am repeatedly warned. Can the positioning be removed? Swain asked. It can be dismantled, but it will take 3 days. So long. Satan Saint, one of the 5 elders, is also a scientist. This is the position he researched. 3 days is just enough time for them to get here from Mariajoya. Vegapunk must be much smarter than Swain, even he only takes away information, this is the last resort. Anyway, you should hurry up. Swain said. He guessed that this time the 5 elders would definitely launch the strongest Buster Call. It is even possible that all 3 generals will come here and destroy this technological island that is 500 years ahead of the future. His heart was full of worries, and he was really unwilling to give up the island until the last moment. If a civilization wants to leap from a low level to a high level, it must either have a genius who can change the world, or there must be an explosion of knowledge expansion. It didn't take long for Swain to come to the ancient robot. It was not a product of modern technology, but made of special materials. Every piece of metal was engraved with traces of time, and every texture told the vicissitudes of history. Like a patron saint, he lay quietly on the ground, his eyes as empty as darkness. The various technologies displayed on ancient robots also reveal that this kingdom once had a high degree of civilization. Vegapunk has been studying this machine for many years, and coupled with the knowledge inherited from O'Hara, his research has actually become closer to the complete appearance of the ancient kingdom. Vegapunk simulates the appearance of the ancient kingdom, and the entire Egghead Island is a microcosm of the ancient kingdom. The core technology of this kingdom is its energy, which is also the core secret of this ancient robot. 200 years ago, he suddenly appeared in the Holy Land Marijoa and carried out an unsuccessful attack. The reason for the failure was insufficient energy. In other words, in the hundreds of years after the demise of the ancient kingdom, the energy technology that this civilization once relied on for survival was probably lost. This just echoes the current crisis on Egghead Island. Saint Pitt will not hesitate to regress human civilization, but also launches a plot to completely destroy this future island. 800 years ago, the forces of the 20 kings represented by I Am also did the same thing, completely destroying the ancient kingdom and losing a lot of technology. So the question is, why do I Am and the Draco always have a grudge against technology? In fact, Dr. Clover back then and Vegapunk later mentioned a key point, the idea of the ancient kingdom. This idea threatens world government. If the celestial dragons represent slavery and oppression, then conversely, the ancient kingdom represents freedom and liberation. And the way this highly civilized country realizes its own free thinking is to use technology to reduce fighting in the world. Vegapunk's dream is to allow energy to be shared free of charge. Because energy is the prerequisite for communicating resources, energy has become the cause of struggle among countries. If one day energy becomes free, then there is no need to fight for it. The world is peaceful, but this equal situation is exactly what the Tianlong people don't want to see, because their rule is based on discrimination. Franchising countries can enjoy various privileges. Although they need to pay a high heavenly fee, they can get the protection of marine and get hypocritical peace. This deformed world is the real darkness. If I Am and the five elders want to maintain such a world, they cannot let the sun shine again. After understanding this general background, the idea becomes clear when we look at the incident of ancient robots attacking the Holy Land 200 years ago. In the year he attacked the Holy Land, another major event occurred. The conflict between the fish men and humans caused turmoil due to language discrimination. Previously, fish and mermaids were classified as fish, but in this year, the Ryugu Kingdom became a member of the world government and was allowed to participate in the World Conference. Chapter 199 Conjecture. Advertisement. Isn't this too huge? Swain stood on the robot like an ant. I guess even the giants are like little children in front of it. What kind of energy can drive such a huge robot? Electricity. If it's Enel, it should be okay. After all, he is considered endless energy, in a sense. Suddenly, Swain remembered something about Enel. In the original plot, after arriving on the moon, Enel discovered an underground city that had existed for a long time and saw two murals. The story on the mural happened in ancient times. But is this ancient era the same time period as 900 years ago? He remembered that there were many animal devil fruits in Kaido's army of espers, and among them, the dinosaur espers were also transformed into ancient species. In Alabasta Vivi, the irrigation history of the Centaur River can be traced back to ancient times. This also shows from the side that Alabasta has had records of civilization since ancient times. The Alabasta Palace was built 4,000 years ago, indicating that the ancient times were at least several thousand years ago. When Swain mentioned the legend of Nika during the exchange with Vegapunk, it was said that Nika was a legendary warrior who had been excited by slaves since ancient times. He could bring laughter to people and was called the Sun God. Combining this information, the ancient times and 900 years ago should be different points in time. The last 4,000 years or more of the Archean era were a very remote and primitive time point, and the dinosaurs were not yet extinct. Humanity is still in the primitive slave society, and the time when Joy Boy was active should be from 900 to 800 years ago, when historical civilization came to the Earth. If it is in the ancient times, then this time is earlier than 900 years ago, that advanced ancient kingdom. Is it possible that the ancient kingdom was the continuation of the lunar civilization? An idea flashed in Swain's mind, and he proposed a hypothesis. The lunar civilization was unable to survive due to exhaustion of resources and had to migrate to the Earth. After they came to the Earth in balloons, they dispersed into 3 groups due to different landing locations and remained in the Sky Island world, becoming the ancestors of the Sky Island people. Shantora, who was established later after reaching the sea, is the ancestor of the Sandia clan, and the last one probably reached the Red Earth continent. And a new country was established there. There once existed a kingdom of gods in the Red Earth continent, and the people living there were the Lunalia tribe. They were called gods by the world because of their super ability to survive. The name of this tribe itself has the meaning of the moon, and the reason why they are powerful is closely related to the flame behind them. Assuming that this flame is as powerful an energy as Mother Fire, could it be the power of the Lunaria clan? Because of the fear of insufficient energy, the moon people transformed their bodies in order to adapt to the new environment. The Lunalia tribe was created, and because of the blessing of this energy, they had nearly invincible defense. And it can use fire as a means of attack. In that ancient era, dinosaurs were still the overlords on land. The Lunaria clan, which can use fire, was like an important symbol at the beginning of human civilization and became a symbol of God during that period. Therefore it gained a high status. Thousands of years later, the Lunaria tribe was nearly extinct for some reason, and the original kingdom of God on the Red Earth continent was replaced by the celestial dragons and the Holy Land Mary Joa. Later, he was taken away by the world government to study Jin, and he had expectations for Joy Boy to change the world. From various clues, it seems that the Lunalia clan did not die out naturally. I was destroyed by a foreign enemy. There were probably too many forces coveting the power of this clan. In the long war, they were almost wiped out. By the blank 100 years, the appearance of Joy Boy became a turning point, but by that time the Lunaria clan was probably on the verge of extinction. Joy Boy appeared and became partners with this family. Their common wish is to create a better world. A world that can survive in peace. Advertisement. The ancient kingdom relied on the research of Lunaria's power to create a powerful artificial sun. The ancient kingdoms used this energy to launch an energy revolution. As a result, the technology of the ancient kingdom advanced by leaps and bounds, surpassing this era. Joey Boy began the action of transforming the world, just like Vegapunk later, believing that free shared energy can bring peace and reduce disputes. As the interests of IM and the other kings were touched. What excites them is a world dominated by unequal slaves. After all, in Shengli, there are still moving walking trails that are propelled by force, which are primitive and outrageous. The ancient kingdom was finally defeated, and Joy Boy took many measures to perpetuate their ideas. There are also pirates like Roger, Luffy, and Swain who are more adventurous, but if you want to say what these people have in common. Looking for freedom, looking for One Piece. Kaido will do whatever it takes to change the world through war. Auntie can do whatever it takes for the sake of heaven. And the treasure left by Joey Boy, and then in the long period of 800 years before Roger. Why did Joey Boy do this? This is the first time in the current timeline that the birth of pirates has been clarified, which was about 900 years ago. The purpose is to allow future generations to find this place. The first impact of this super large treasure hunt is that there are more and more pirates on the sea. Roger may have inherited Joey Boy's will and intends to continue to push forward what Joey Boy has not finished. In the Great Pirates era, this idea was probably not Roger's first idea, but the idea of Joey Boy 900 years ago. Roger met Whitebeard before his death and told him part of the truth. Roger is going to use the grandest performance and use his last life to ignite the Great Pirate era. Therefore, in the original plot, Whitebeard intensified the development of the Great Pirates era in a similar way before his death. Later, due to the destruction of the 100-year gap, the ancient writings were lost in history. No one has found this island. This is the so-called historical text. Why not tell the whole truth? And the reason why he did this now seems to have been inspired by Joey Boy 900 years ago. This is obviously not in line with Joey Boy's original intention. Not to mention Swain. Roger saw everything about the world at Raftru, including the content of the blank 100 years and the significance of the D family. And the most important thing is to leave One Piece at the end of the Grand Line. His current story is centered on Luffy's perspective, but before Luffy, Haki had left countless legends. Eventually a super war was triggered. That is, they all have desires, or in other words, they all have dreams. Every powerful pirate who is worthy of being on the stage has a very pure motive for going to sea to become a pirate. So he designed 4 road signs. These 2 people are like a relay, the purpose is to inspire more people to go to sea. That's right, pirates are a central profession, just like Kaido and Ming-Jie, pirates who do many evil things. Roger, as One Piece, took the initiative to surrender to Marine. In terms of motivation, the subsequent execution was also part of his plan. That's why One Piece has been silent for so many years. After arriving at Raftru, he understood the purpose of Joy Boy's actions. Slave rule came into sharp conflict with the ideas of Joy Boy and the freedom of the ancient kingdoms. The most important basis is that Joey Boy is the first man to be called a pirate in this sea. What is ancient weapon? Chapter 200 Night Owl. Advertisement. A full day has passed since St. Peter launched the Buster Call. Swain also invited the Red Earl over. With all the strength of Beehive Island, it is simply not enough to win under the combined pressure of Marine and 5 elders. But it was unrealistic for him to take Vegapunk out by himself, so he transferred the Red Earl. The Red Earl was very dissatisfied that Swain troubled him again, but after all, he had to pay some physical price for being under someone else's care. Tisk. What a hateful little brat. The Red Earl said disdainfully. Sir, who are we going to kill this time? An ordinary-looking man with a crew cut asked respectfully. His name is Baron Deniger, and he is a character who will be forgotten at a glance among the crowd. But his strength is extremely powerful, especially the Grandmaster's assassination technique, which makes people fear him. Seeing that the Red Earl didn't answer, he thought to himself, could it be another noble family? He thought that the noble who massacred his family last time was also a lackey of the Celestial Dragons, transporting slaves and food for them. That day, he made an exception behind the back of the Night Owl organization and R******D the noble lady. Deniger licked his lips, and the desire in his heart came up again. The beauty of that noble lady was something he would never forget. So delicious. Don't ask so many questions, said the Red Earl. He liked the young man in front of him very much, he was ruthless and obeyed orders. But he talks a lot. Whoosh whoosh. Since it was night, the coast was very quiet and a few people came. There are a total of 7 people in the Night Owl assassination organization. The strength and loyalty of these 5 people were personally selected by Swain and the Red Count, except for Denig, who was selected by the Red Count himself. He is also the deputy team member of this organization, and his strength is at the Shichibukai level. All of them have strength comparable to that of Lieutenant General Marine. Even if this kind of strength were placed in the New World, he would be able to become a famous pirate. After seeing everyone gathered, the Red Earl said, "Get ready, we will set off to Egghead Island overnight." Egghead Island. Denige was formerly a navigator, and he knew a lot about the names of sea areas. This was the first time he heard of this island called Egghead Island. They use the fastest ship, called Flying Fish, which has high performance and is extremely fast. It is the fastest ship developed so far by Swain's scientific research department. For a long distance like Dantu Island, it takes 1.5 days to reach it. Suddenly, there was a sound of water flowing, and the 7 people looked back to follow the sound. I saw a half-naked man releasing water on the beach. It seemed that he was drunk. The drunk man also saw the Red Earl and the others under the moonlight. He was so drunk that his eyes were blurred and he thought it was his drinking buddy and stumbled over. Kill him, Red Earl ordered. Immediately, 3 people stepped forward, reaching their hands behind their backs at extremely fast speeds, obviously preparing to take a dagger. The drunk man slowly realized something was wrong. He didn't even know the people in front of him. Seeing the daggers in their hands with a flash of cold light, they suddenly sobered up. Who are you? The sword light was almost close to his throat, and the man dodged to the limit, almost dodging in a circular arc. The man was obviously a little weak, but the 3 people who took action did not kill him for a while. It's really troublesome, the Red Earl said softly. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied that his men could not kill him in time. Deniger heard the idea and immediately took action himself. Advertisement. He was much stronger than the 3 of them combined, and the drunken man was defeated in almost 3 rounds. Sir, this is a brigade commander. Brigadier, Red Earl said in surprise. He began to become hesitant. If Swain knew that he had killed a brigade commander, would he still jump to his feet? Since Swain reformed the pirate corps, he has been granted a military rank. The brigade commander is already a very big position. Above him is the army commander and the king, below him are the regiment commander and the company commander. The brigade commander corresponds to the strength of a marine lieutenant general, and the army commander corresponds to the 12 strongest lieutenant generals in the marine headquarters. As for the king, he is against General Marine. And this brigade commander's strength can withstand the offensive of the Red Earl's 3 men without losing. It seems that he is about to be promoted to army commander. What should we do? Denig tied him in front of the Red Earl and asked. It's just that the man was blindfolded. This was also Swain's request. No one in the Night Owl organization could be exposed. If Swain knew everyone by randomly asking, then this assassination organization would be of no use. He knows what I look like, but he can't kill me as a brigade commander. It's really a headache, Deniger said. Do you know who we are? Asked the Red Earl. The murderous aura in his body was released, and it felt like being stared at by a beast. His body trembled involuntarily. No. Don't know. Have you seen us? The man thought he was certain to die, but when he heard these words, he felt happy and it seemed that he would survive. Never seen it. Do you have a family? Red Earl continued to ask. I couldn't tell whether his voice was happy or sad. This question made the man's hair stand on end. Did he really not intend to let me go? No, the man said decisively. I can investigate all your information at any time. You can't hide anything from me. If you are honest, you and your family will still have a way to survive. Deniger's heart warmed up after hearing the words of the Red Earl. He did not expect that a cold-blooded person like the Red Earl would not kill his companions at will. Sure enough, I followed the wrong person. In fact, what he didn't know was that the Red Earl was afraid that Swain would be jealous of him. After all, this man is a brigade commander, not an ordinary person. All officers have strict information registration and protection mechanisms. And he is responsible for this. If he really killed him, Swain would definitely launch a major investigation, and then he would really be shooting himself in the foot. The man thought for a moment and then said, yes. The Red Earl said again, you are very honest, forget everything about today. Otherwise, he didn't finish his words, but the piercing killing intent already made the man feel terrible. I promise I won't tell anyone. HMPH. Don't even think about snitching on that brat Swain, I'm just doing things for him. Subsequently, they then set off for Dantu Island. The man was left alone to sober up in the wind.